Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Rising.
From the Ashes. I'm Danny Nucky Dan.
And I'm the homie Romy. Hello, good sir. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. 104 degrees here in Northern California. So I'm turning crystalline.
Yeah, I feel you, dude. It's hot as shit outside right now. 140 when I was in my car earlier. Tell the good people of the Fire Tribe who we got here today.
Wow. Well, welcome everybody. Fire Tribe to this amazing meeting of the minds. These are all the guests that have been on our show before. And you all had great things to say about these episodes. And this is going to be great. We're going to get a lot deeper context into some different areas that we may not have talked about before. So we have with us Gabriel Slick Dissident. How are you doing, sir?
Lovely, lovely. So stoked for this coming together. This is going to be monumental.
Agreed.
Indeed, monumental.
And then we also have Peter Shampoo, who was on just a couple episodes ago. Peter, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very fine, thank you, Roman. I just got back from a retreat, a 2-day retreat with this fellow Ken Stone. He,
Nice.
Called the soul archaeologist, so I've been integrating that and enjoying the weather here in Arizona. It's usually hot and dry or sunny, and we have clouds in the sky today, and it kind of reminds me of my native New England.
And fantastic. I never complain about rain personally. Never.
Never.
It's a blessing. And then we have our brother Chad Stumkey. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing awesome, Romy. Thank you, you and Dan, for having me tonight. I'm excited to be here with the crew, man. It's going to be a good time.
Agreed. Yeah, yes. So I mean, there's a lot to get into, and it's kind of like, where do we start? Okay, so I guess Dan, do you have any foundational questions you want to get into? Any things like that? Because I was lucky enough to be available for Chad and Peter, but Dan wasn't able to make it both of those days. He was finishing moving. So, yeah, buddy.
One of the things that interests me a lot is like the whole ley line thing and the circular patterns that it's making in on the land or whatever. That's kind of one of the things that I'm interested in finding out more about. You hear a lot about ley lines, but you don't really hear about the circular patterns that it's the geometrical patterns that it's making. And so I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit.
Sounds like my department.
I was gonna say yes, yeah. You want to enlighten us on the importance of the shapes there?
Yeah, sure. There's this notion of ley lines and earth grids that's pretty common out there, and everybody wants to have a ley line in their backyard, but believe me, you don't want it. It's there's a lot of current that goes through those ley lines. It's kind of corridors of culture, if you will. And I mainly focus on the large scale ley lines. It's in scale. It's a fractal thing. They can go across your yard as energy lays and across a state or a bioregion, but they also go international. And that's more of my focus is to find ley lines that express themselves in culture, an alignment of culture and natural features across the land. It's kind of like what I'm chasing after. I have done ley work with dowsing, but I'm trying to make it more of an accessible topic where, here's this evidence, here's this empirical evidence of this synchronicity or correlation of nature, natural and cultural sites. And, many of these sites have had a lot of syncretic overlays on them, one culture on top of another, because they're sacred sites. A lot of these sacred sites are on ley lines, and that's how a sacred site disseminates its frequencies across the land. I found that a lot of these ley lines went in a great circle around the planet. So I started to look for other circles on the planet, and by referencing the curvilinear shapes of the planet itself, like the arc of California, Mexico border, or coastline, I should say. That references this little town called Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts, back in where I lived back in Massachusetts. And and if you make a complete that arc, it generates a ring that encompasses the whole North American tectonic plate, with the mid-Atlantic rift being its eastern border, and the California San Andreas Fault being its western border, and southern border goes down, through the Caribbean Fault, up against Venezuela, and then it goes over the top up into where the magnetic field was. Magnetic field decided to move somewhere else here in the past few years, traveling fast towards Russia, and the other magnetic field is coming in the other direction. But what I found is that these rings define cultural zones, like the coast of China, for instance, circulinear. And when you resolve that to a center point, it's where the Emperor City, the White Emperor City was. It's where a lot of poets went, and but it's also where Wuhan is. So we have poetry, then we have viruses, and the syncretism that builds up. So I think by seeing the world in this way is my thing, is that it should. It would be foundation stones for a sustainable world, sustainable society, where you're mending the hoop, returning to the circle instead of having all these rectangles everywhere and dividing lines and borders. There's more of an interrelationship of rings and things that is the conversation. Oh, Roman's got a question.
Well, I mean, I'm feeling massive Atlantean energies going on here.
Right.
The talk of centric concentric
circles,
rings,
rings.
but I was thinking centrifugal because of you have a center point, and then outwards you have the circular shape. So
the vortex
moves, and it moves in a centrifugal state. So I'm getting a lot of this Atlantean vibes, and I am curious on your research and your understanding of what this Atlantis was, and this talk of concentric rings. Do you think it was definitely more of that time of a unanimous electromagnetic understanding?
Yeah, I think they're aware of these rings. From all reports of the design of Atlantis, it mimicked this pattern which I see repeated in creation. Like the way the interior rings of the planet, I call them Earth rings because they reflect interior patterns out onto the surface of our Earth cell membrane. And so we have the inner core, outer core, and upper and lower mantles. And that geometry is the same as an Earth energy vortex. It's the same as the Atlantean city setup. It's the same as the human eyeball, that geometry. And so it's, galaxies are light, star density matches similar patterns, and our solar system and everything matches the same. And quantum gravity has a similar thing. So it seems to be a gravity signature that gets repeated. But these sizes of these, like the inner core of the planet, they say, oh, it's about the size of the moon, but it's really the size of Pluto. And the outer core is the size of Mars. And then the mantle is the size of Venus. So, this is how the planets communicate between one another, because they have a resonant sizing and form that, they speak to one another. That's how astrology works.
I was on your website, Geometry of Place, and I noticed that you had like a tree of life, like a geometric tree of life, traced over like Europe and Asia. I was wondering, is there like an epicenter that these rings radiate from? And is there ring patterns within the larger rings?
Well, yeah, it's that particular model was something generated by Beth Hagens in the universal vector geometry that was that's kind of touted as the model for ley lines. Ancient Aliens uses that as a model. You see it on TV all the time, and that tree of life model over, with the center line going down the Nile meridian. It was an overlay that worked. It's like a syncretism again, an overlay of one cultural form onto another. So yeah, the tree of life. They say the Great Pyramid is the center of the world, but North America is the only circular continent. So it's like we reflect the pattern of the planet more, North America, than say Africa, which is more of a 5 spiral, if you can kind of visualize that. And
Nice.
and then South America is a 3, 4, 5 triangle. And then like Eurasia is like a 5 rhomboid, like a diamond shape. So, but we got somebody's playing here.
Roman is.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the center point in North America. It's kind of how I look at things. It's things that happen around the center get radiated out into the continent and world. A lot of world ley lines go through this area. So.
And where is that?
That's in Western Massachusetts. You'll see kind of Brattleboro, Vermont is up there, and then Northampton and Holyoke, Springfield. It's the West Connecticut River Valley is what you're seeing there for the most part. Connecticut River comes down through Brattleboro, Northfield, Northampton.
And this is the center point of the ring of
Yeah,
North
of the
America,
North American ring. Yeah, it's the center point of that. And there's it's a big geologic plug. I find that many of these rings, one of the proofs of it being an actual earth ring is that it has a core pluton of rock, of like a volcanic uplift, a volcanic feature of rock. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, the Great Pyramid certainly, I think was set up as the center of the world. It's like an antenna that was placed there intentionally. And the Great Pyramid is the angle of it is the same angle as the bonding angle of water. So the Great Pyramid bonds with the it's a syncretic overlay on the biosphere. So it's like informing the biosphere through geometry of similarity to transmit its message. And I've been kind of thumping the drum lately about how that pyramid has been hijacked by the lower forces, or perhaps it's just a thing that reflects what's being directed, just reflects what's on within the biosphere, so we have all this violence, and and that feeds, what I understand, the energy feeds into the faces of it, and then gets shot out its edges. And so when you follow those edge forms out, you find genocide, these great massacres, and like Fukushima and things of that nature. So yeah, there's one syncretic overlay after another, and who and what is the syncretic form that is in control of the pyramid, I don't know, or is there such a thing as that? I don't know, but it could be just us, just in our
Yeah, egregorically created or
collective
something.
consciousness. We are kind of generating this genocide.
It's interesting, you bring up the shape, and later have, because when you said that, when we spoke, it stuck out to me that there's the significance of the shape of the molecule of the water, and that fractal kind of aspect with that. And I looked it up, and there's some models online that show that, and it's super fascinating. But then it makes me think about other pyramids and the step pyramids, things that are built just as intricately with as much forethought, obviously huge geometric forethought and architectural forethought, but the significance of the shape is actually different. And you go and focus your point, or focus on South America, where there's tens of thousands of pyramids at these different shape. And I'm wondering, your opinion on those pyramids, and the significance of those shapes, in accordance to the water molecule situation there.
So, this show is rising from the ashes, and the Great Pyramid. Pyramid is fire in the middle. So, if you're and one of my models is looking at the Great Pyramid like it's just this capstone coming out of the planet. And if you project that capstone into the planet, its sides go, where the sides come out, and the plane of its base goes through the planet. The Earth's inner core sits right on it. So the fire in the middle is the Earth's core, and the pyramid itself is the whole planet. So it's when you're talking about that, I was thinking, I wonder, I'll have to look at the angle of Teotihuacan to see if that had, it's a slighter angle, and it might, that projected through the planet might be interesting. I haven't looked at that yet. Yeah.
So when we talk about these syncretic overlords, if you will, for a fun term, right, for lack of a better one, maybe, but the conquistadorian takeover of South America was from these people who seemingly have had this deep, inept understanding of the power of the earth and the power of the magnetics of the earth. And I think that it was very, very, very much a planned, situation to go and basically hijack South America before North America, and through that, there's the major syncretism that happened originally in South America through those cultures who were incredibly tapped in with their pyramid building culture. And it's just fascinating to me. And there's it's speculation because it's so suppressed. There's so much misinformation and watered down situations through that history and these codexes and everything. But there's some major syncretism going on there. I kind of want to wrap it to Chad, because Chad does some great work in Detroit, and something that you've brought up before with Hart Plaza being very, very esoterically attuned. The artist that went and made Hart Plaza, didn't he do a sojourn in Egypt and say that there was something this specific to the pyramids of Giza, ley line wise, or something? Can you enlighten us on that, sir?
Sorry. He came to Detroit in 1974, and the year before that, he spent a year in Egypt. And like you said, he was on a year-long sojourn, as he put it, and he was there. He was interested in the relationship the Egyptians had with their temples. So he spent a year, getting supposedly information about that relationship. And then he came back to Detroit and he built Hart Plaza. And he's never said in any of his interviews or anything that he was going to incorporate Egyptian symbolism into Hart Plaza in Detroit. But, you know, that being said, there's Egyptian symbolism all over the place. Several of the monuments are aligned just like the Giza pyramids, as well as to the constellation of Orion. One of those monuments happens to be a pyramid. The fountain happens to be called the Horus and Sun Fountain. You know, the monument that stands where the Sphinx would be is a giant obelisk or pylon. You know, so he never said he did this intentionally, but that said, he did just return from Egypt. So, you know, now at one point he did say that the symbolism I'm about to deposit in Hart Plaza won't be recognized until the time is right. So that's the closest I've came to, you know, finding him admitting to depositing the symbolism. But I always point out, sometimes I think these artists and architects may subconsciously download some of the symbolism, you know, through their plans and through their blueprints. And this could have possibly been the case with Osamu Noguchi also. You know, he may have been doing the same thing when he was in Egypt. You know, it's hard to tell, but this guy was definitely on a journey. When he came back here to America, he started depositing, in particular, Egyptian and portal symbolism pretty much for the rest of his life.
God, I think it was you that brought up the information that it was Detroit was an old Native American sacred site. There was like some special stone there, I believe. Was that you or?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. There used to be a stone idol on Belle Isle, and one of the first records is when the French explorers came to town. They threw the Native American stone idol into the river, and you know that was the beginning of the bad luck for Detroit, so to speak. And you know, it's
Terrible.
That's the lore, you know, from terrible. The French came and destroyed the mounds. The British followed them and destroyed some of the remaining mounds. And what was left, the Americans came and destroyed with the Star Fort and the World Exposition. So there used to be just this incredible Native American history along the Detroit River. And in a matter of a couple hundred years, they came and pretty much stamped out that history and that symbolism, you know, with, in particular in Detroit, they stamped it out with 4 star forts and a World's Fair, as well as a pentagram street layout. So I always point out the symbol of the star, the symbol of the pentagram, in the strange way has always been surrounding Detroit. And Peter, of special interest to me is I don't know if you remember this, but about 10 years ago, you sent me your book, Curious Alignments, so I could take a look at the Michigan biome and the fact that it's a pentagon and pentagram. And to me, that was a huge confirmation, because I've been talking about the streets of Detroit being laid out as pentagrams and scaling it up. Like at one point, where I started was, it's called Detroit's point of origin is in Campus Mars. And right there where they laid out the streets from, there's a pentagram on the ground. I found that interesting. And then I realized the building right in front of me was a giant Pentagon building. And then I realized that Pentagon building was in the heart of a pentagonal street layout. Well, then Peter sent me his book saying there's a pentagonal biome above that, you know. So
Wow.
Peter's always part of my slides when I'm pointing out, you know, the symbol starting from above with the biome, you scale it down to the base of the pentagram biome, and you have a pentagonal street layout. You scale it down to the base of that street layout, you have a pentagonal building. In the heart of that pentagonal building, you have a pentagonal glass pyramid. At the base of that pyramid, you have a pentagon and stone on the ground. And like I told Romy, and then you got cars driving around that pentagon with the Chrysler Herd ornament on it with a pentagram and pentagon on it.
And then what's underneath? Because you know there was massive tunnel works underneath there.
There are actually, Detroit is built over salt mines, and there's over 40 some miles of salt mines below Detroit.
Crystals,
And,
dude.
you know,
Crystal
metaphysically, crystals.
Mirrors, baby.
Yeah. And as we know, salt metaphysically can work as an anchoring. you know, and if we're talking portals, you need something to anchor these portals or this biome or this symbolism into place. And we're, you know, over top of salt mines.
When you guys refer to this biome, what is this biome? What is this structure that's above? What is this?
The Great Lakes
Yeah.
biome is you know, if you will, all the Great Lakes don't have any rivers that really to speak of that feed it. Very small rivers that come in around it. Most of the water comes up from below. But a biome is a you know, there's a bioregion, which is, you know, like a river system, and a biome is like you know, the Great Plains or the Southwest or the Great Lakes. You know, so the Great Lakes create a shape. The center point is Sault Ste. Marie, where the Masons put the largest single stone obelisk that they ever created. You know, there at the center.
Single stone?
Single stone. Right?
Wow.
And came out of Connecticut, Stonington, Connecticut. But if you take that center point and create a circle around that, you'll hit Duluth and Chicago and Detroit and Niagara Falls, and it kind of defines it. So it's actually a spiral shape coming in. St. Lawrence Seaway comes in and through Ontario, and then, you know, as it gets into Erie, it kind of moves into that pentagonal form, and it's pent because the angle that's created between the point of Duluth, Sault Ste. Marie, and Chicago generates an angle that is the same as a pentagon. So when you complete that pentagonal form, it hits all these other major cultural centers.
And oh, go ahead. Sorry.
There's a guy named John Sayes who did those curious alignments. He took my work and said, well, if this is true, let's see how it aligns with the rest of the planet. And so he developed this whole alignment system that kind of proved that geometry, if you will.
It's fantastic to think about. And, you know, the biomes is absolutely it's an anomaly on its own. And I'm curious about the magnetic anomalies that are accorded to the different biomes in different places on the earth, because seemingly they have these different these qualities. But I want to see if Gabe wants to jump in here, because I know Gabe's probably itching at the sides here to jump in here with some goodness, man. What's happening there, sir?
Man, this is a wonderful panel that we've put together. I am so honored to be with you guys. I'm loving everybody's contribution. This is so exciting. I've done some kind of fun work that might be new to the scene. I don't know if anybody knows about it. I don't advertise. I don't have any books written, but I have some very probably unique ideas. But one of the things that I've put together is what I call the Tarot Tories system. And I've taken, you start with the standard zodiac, and you place it on the Mississippi River at the 37-degree parallel, right at the Y juncture, with the tip of Illinois, at where Cairo, Illinois. You could consider that like the hub of my zodiac wheel. And then I've placed all of the tarot cards onto the stations of the zodiac. And what comes to light is powerful correspondence, not only with the shapes of the states, but also the mascots, the logos, the state flags. It's quite profound. It's really compelling. It takes a long time to get 22 examples. It took me 3 hours to run through them at high speed to really make a compelling case. It's quite an adventure just to convince somebody. But Michigan is an easy one. It's one of my strongest cases, and so I'm super excited to share this with you, Chad. So
I'm excited
yeah,
to hear it, Gabe.
nice. So yeah, Michigan and Indiana fall into the sign of Cancer. And the tarot card that course where we are right now, by the way, we are in Cancer as we're having this conversation, very synchronous. And the tarot card that corresponds with Michigan is with Cancer is the Chariot card. And this makes quite a bit of sense.
Vroom, vroom, baby.
Because of Motor City, as well as the Indy 500. That entire pie wedge of the zodiac wheel is very appropriately fulfilled by our traditions and rituals in that territory, with the Indy 500 and the chariot racing and the manufacturing of chariots.
This is great.
Yes, and also think of the mitt, the shape of Michigan, the mitt of Michigan. It's a crab's claw.
Yeah.
It's the crab's claw of the Cancer, the sign of Cancer. And you could even consider it the glove that a charioteer would require to handle the tethers of a horse-drawn carriage. And so I'm very excited to be talking about that one in particular. There are other ones, but Michigan is one of my best cases because I don't need to bring visuals forward. You know, it's easy for the imagination to attach to what I'm trying to convey there.
Can I jump in on a weave there real quick with what I think of with Cancer too is the 69, right, which is like hermetically as above so below, because it's the mirror image of each other, and you have all those lakes there in that watery biome.
Right.
At such a northern region, like you go down south, right, you get all the humidity, you get the water table's really high, but you go up there and it's just like, yeah, like there's these lakes and they're not fed, like Peter was saying, they're not fed by these rivers, but they're massive bodies of water, and it's super fascinating. I love, yeah, this really is like such a unique meeting of the minds with everybody's different areas of research. Fascinating. Gabe, were you going to keep going, sir?
Nothing is coming to mind. Yeah, I'm very interested in that salt deposit, and I think I can.
I'd love to say something about the chariots.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, super synchronistic, since we're talking about this. You know, one of the main buildings and the second to oldest building downtown Detroit is the Wayne County building, and it sits halfway between Campus Mars and Hart Plaza, the two main spots I look at. And on top of that building is a giant, beautiful chariot being driven by a goddess. And I would just happen to be down there a couple of weeks ago, and that was the one monument I was standing in front of taking selfies of me in this chariot with the goddess behind me. And, you know, so super synchronistic there. And, you know, chariot, of course, Detroit, the Motor City, and all the, you know, the vehicles. But I also think of, you know, when you say chariot, I'm thinking of Ezekiel's wheels. I'm thinking of Merkaba, mysticism, and the light body chariots, and you know, being our celestial body, being able to go through consciousness portals. So that chariot symbolism, you know, we can take that all kinds of different ways.
Who is the goddess that's in the chariot?
Honestly, Dan, I am not sure. This is the one sculpture that for some reason I've kind of neglected over the years. And that's why I was down there taking pictures this time.
It's about
and
time.
I've got some pictures of it, but I haven't dug into. Yeah, it's about time. It's like it's weird that I haven't dug into it because it's there overlooking everything that I'm digging into. And so yeah, it's one of the old. It's beautiful too. It's absolutely gorgeous, and the building's closed down, so I can't get up there and get to it. You know, but I'm gonna figure out a way to get off some of the neighboring buildings and get some close-ups of it and see what I can see.
Man, that is exciting. Is it drawn by horses, or are they some other animals?
Yep, it's drawn by horses. It has a totally Atlantean feel to it. You know, it reminds me of the. It's just outside of Greektown in Detroit.
Okay. So I have a kind of a fun event that I'm probably going to do a little project tonight on this. But do you guys all remember the publicity stunt where Joe Biden was riding on his bicycle and he fell sideways? Did we all see that footage? Did everybody watch the footage on that?
I saw a picture, but
Well, with this with the territories in mind, sometimes I see these events as very ritualistic, and I can fill in a lot of context for making a case that Joe Biden riding across the crosswalk on his chariot with his helmet on, with a white helmet on, no less, and falling exactly horizontal or sideways as he crosses over this threshold or this liminal space. It is an absolute solar ritual, is an homage or a, we'll just say, we'll just call it a ritual. And because I think most of us know that there are the 3 days that the sun at that solstice point, it goes lateral. Instead of progressing up or down, it goes sideways for 3 days, like a crab going to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden is wearing his shell, his egghead helmet, and he goes sideways as he crosses over the summer solstice. It was absolutely a ritual to acknowledge the mechanics of the heavens.
It's the archetypal cosmic code, man.
Yes. So I just thought I would share that because it just happened, and here we are having this conversation. It totally needs to come to the fore. So
Wow.
That's kind of a fun one. And yeah, it's got all of the ingredients of that chariot card and the crab and that lateral movement of the sun for 3 days. And he did it right on cue too.
Peter. Yes. Yeah. Pop in.
It's all a cosmodrama, eh? But it makes me want, I've seen a lot of these landscape zodiacs appear. There's one, around the Tour in England and such, and been a lot of studies of this. And I wonder if it's, I've often wondered if it's, cause or effect. Is somebody actually designing it, or this is just something that emerges out of like a cosmic pattern that wants to express itself, like the tarot, like the wheel of the great hoop. It's like it's self-creating, self-generating. Being on the Mississippi, at the Mississippi confluence there. What's that? Of Missouri and Mississippi River, I guess. Is that the confluence on 38, 37?
Yes. Yeah.
That's really, the heart of the river. And one of my pieces is to look at rivers, length of rivers, and the Mississippi River from New Orleans up to Lake Itasca is the radius of the moon.
Oh, yes.
So, and it comes down and encompasses all of the Gulf of Mexico in that ring. So having that at that point, does it go down to New Orleans? Is that part of the?
It does. New Orleans.
So it's kind of like at the halfway point of that ring that's being generated that you speak of, that tarot space.
Yes.
So the river, water is is a self-organizing mechanism of the universe. You add, sprinkle in some water, and you come out with sacred geometry. And you breathe the sound of the whoo of creation into it, and then you get the circle and that radiance and such, and then there's this like manifestation of all the creative archetypes that are demonstrated in the horoscope. So it's like, it's what you're describing is so integrated in both culture and nature that it would suggest that there's something some kind of universal force at work here.
Yes.
So, great.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you for recognizing.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so excited to have discovered it. And I'm so excited that I'm just blabbing my mouth off. I should be off writing books or substantiating it for posterity's sake.
You're storyboarding, you're getting it out, you're creating it.
Yes.
Let me tell I've been conceptually trying to write something for a while, and it's it takes a long time to even get the conception down. And so, there's no rush on it, brother, because the great thing is once, we live in this conscious goop, we live in this celestial code, we live in the proverbial pot of foreverness, and reality is so beautiful because like Chad was saying earlier, he's like, I wonder if Noguchi knew about what he was doing, or if he was having intuitive downloads. And I'm grateful for my intuition, because generally speaking, I talk to myself a lot, and I try to talk to my intuition, and through that I get guided in ways where I'm like, I don't even know how I made that decision, but I'm glad I went with it. And I think we can all correspond to that kind of understanding here, the boys in this sweet circle that we got going on. And the really fascinating concept got brought up earlier by Peter, with the pyramid going down into the earth, and potentially it being the capstone itself. And that is like a form of cosmic syncretism, right? Like, or I guess a Gaia syncretism, where it's just stacking on itself, and these concentric rings, these concentric layers of the planet itself, the Russian doll effect of our galaxy. And it got me thinking about, okay, well, a chariot, the Merkaba, is a chariot, and it is this form of different pyramids. And so I'm thinking now of these pyramids going through the earth and going out the other side to create the Merkaba itself, as Earth is a Merkaba.
Yes.
What do you guys think? You guys vibe with that at all?
Oh, absolutely. I believe it's I forget his first name. Is it Hancock?
Graham Hancock.
Graham Hancock.
Fingerprints of the Gods.
Yes, I believe it's him who has a theory that there's the Merkaba of Earth has a nexus point in Hawaii at 19.5 degree latitude, and there is a corresponding one on Mars, and there's a corresponding one on the spot of Jupiter is at 19.5 degrees. Even though it's moving, it's at that latitude. And also the dark spot of Neptune. I think I'm getting that right. All of those spots that are visible from all the way from another planet, those spots are all at 19.5 degrees. And that would be, if you converted the sphere of the Earth into a Merkaba, 19.5 would be a marcation, a corner spot where the angles of the Merkaba meet.
So not the tips, but where they come down and they converge.
You got it. You're totally seeing it. Because
that's kind of what Hawaii is. It's super sea level, if not inverted sea level, where it's basically creating Earth and pushing it out. You can imagine. Whoa, you almost fell off my fucking chair. But you can imagine it just kind of pushing out this energy. And I've lived in Hawaii for a long time, honestly, off and on for 10 years. I could tell you about some crazy Merkaba chariot, conscious gate, Stargate energy shit going on there. Like, I was standing down not South Kona, but down in Puna, down by where the volcano hotspot is. And it was a really crazy experience, but I was shoeless on the smooth lava rock. And I had to open my mouth towards the sky, because I felt this strange tingling through my legs all the way up, and I just had to go like that for a second. And I'm glad really nobody was looking at me, because it probably looked really strange, but I felt like there was a surge of energy shooting through, and it seems like, yeah, like there's this pushing aspect, which is just fascinating. And wow.
A little touch up. I was looking to see who that goddess might be, and I came across Victoria or Nike.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that's right, Dan.
Victoria.
Oh,
Yeah, it wasn't Graham Hancock that came up with that, but I'm having trouble remembering the fellow's name. It starts with an H.
Richard
did a lot-
Hoagland.
Richard Hoagland, yes, thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
right.
Yep.
He was doing the face on the Mars and everything, and came across that.
Great
but-
save. Thank you, Chad. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
one piece
course.
you missed out, which is very contemporary to us today, is that the sunspots all appear on the 19.5 degree latitude of the sun. So we have some big sunspots that are kind of ready to send us a CME here any day now.
Yes.
Oh,
So that's so it seems like another one of those universal structures. I look at it as the solar plexus of the planet, where the fire emerges. You have Pinatubo, and Mexico City is also on that same 19.5 ring. So,
yeah.
it's an intense one. Well, I've been wanting to go to Hawaii for some time to get a download from Pele and be in
Yeah.
that solar plexus zone. But if you're to look at the planet as a chakra system, it like the equator is the second chakra, and the first chakra is the Earth's inner core, and then you got the 18.5 is the solar plexus. New Orleans is the heart chakra, where you have all the rivers pouring into. You have the Colorado, the Mississippi, the Tigris, Euphrates, Yangtze, so Nile River, all pouring into the 30th parallel. So that's where all our blood goes, is to the heart. So it's the heart chakra. And then up in the 40s, 40, 44, that zone up there, you get throat chakra stuff. So you got a lot of civilizations and culture and people like going.
Wow.
yeah, it's
That's-
also called the Heartland in America too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course crown chakras,
Yes. I've heard people mention the fact that all of the patents are preserved in those more northern latitudes, which is kind of the mental storage
Yeah.
spot.
The third eye is, right. Like Stonehenge is on the third eye of the planet.
Nice.
Interesting.
Just
So
another model, another syncretic overlay that I put on the planet. I don't know if it's,
Do you think they're building these structures to connect with the biodome, or that these structures are creating the biodome?
Back in the Egyptian revival of the late 1800s, they were, the Masons, they were going wild with this stuff. We talked about how the church took over South America by placing these, like the Temple of the Sun in Cusco was overlaid with a big cathedral. So, so for that reason, South America is very strong Catholic country. But, when the Puritans came, they didn't believe in any of these sacred sites and called them all devil places. And so the Masons picked up the ball there and placed civic political structures over these sacred sites. One of the lines, with this great pyramid, the northwest edge line, if you take that, I look at that as a ley line. It goes up through CERN and on over through like the south of England and where it comes to shore over here is right down the St. Lawrence Seaway, and it, you know, just hits off all these cities like, you know, these big Masonic cities of Quebec and Montreal and Buffalo and Cleveland. And that goes right. It doesn't hit Detroit, but each one of those places has these very large obelisks. So I think the obelisk is a tool to ground the pyramidal consciousness into place. So you know, we have this church and state kind of pyramidal force of, you know, like the little people supporting the royalty, or, you know, this type of that model of life that has been kind of propagated and promulgated, you know, via these syncretic overlays of obelisks that key back into that great pyramid.
I'm wondering, first visualization I had on that, unfortunately, was cell phone towers. You know, talking about obelisk, right? Like you have like, they're kind of obelisk shaped. They're, you know, but they're not necessarily grounding, but they are at the same time. They are grounding, but they're also emanating. And it's almost like the opposite, you know. I'm wondering what your guys' opinions are on these cell phone towers and how they affect this type of this biosphere. Anybody?
Yeah.
I don't fucking know.
Well, last night
I got to talk last. You guys.
Okay. Well, last night on the Weaving Spiders Welcome, or Weaving Spiders Webs, we had a really fun riff on solfeggio. And Chance took a couple minutes to give us a little run through on a presentation he has on solfeggio. And we were looking at the numbers and the 369 and
174.
all of the inevitable patterns of the matrix of these numbers and how they roll out. And as we were looking at his presentation, we found that for one, the word cell phone corresponds powerfully with solfeggio.
Yes.
Because there's a one pattern. It's hard for me to just describe it verbally, but I definitely believe that there is a solfeggio component to the secret of a lot of the unseen world. We'll just put it that way. And I think it's in use in even, I mean, very subtle ways already. And it's just become more and more elaborate, advanced, and nuanced.
Yes.
But you know, it starts with music. It's in our language. It's even in the gematria of the letters that we choose to communicate. Such fine minutia of application to it. And the cell phone thing is like the more modern advancement of an ancient system of math that makes up the matrix. But I know that was vague and obtuse, but I think solfeggio comes into play, and it's actually in the term cell phone. We are winking to each other. That is, I believe, a powerful secret to that system.
That bust open a lot right there. Just that the beginning of that wordplay. You know, it's half of it, and then there's another half. There's the hermetic half somewhere on the other side of that, and it might just be energetically. It's super fascinating because I have been working with the solfeggio tones and my tuning keys, and I've been really working with them, like really trying to work with my auric field and really try to retune. And but I want to let you guys. I want to segue into resonance. But I want to let everybody else kind of riff on the cell phone thing, if you have anything.
Well, I could plug away here, but you know, as a geomancer, I've been called on a lot to help people that are being kind of plagued by cell towers and EMF and smart meters and such. You know, they're mostly women. You know, they feel like their back is like being fried like bacon. I mean, it's terrible suffering that these women are going through who are, exposed to these cell towers, and they're, so they have to go out in the woods, climb under a rock practically to have a good night's sleep. So, there's this dissonance that's being broadcast. And I think that specifically, there's this tuning, perhaps not a solfeggio tuning that they're using there. Is more of a dissonance that they're trying to create that is all part of like a multi form
Faceted
effort to kill the soul. And the vaccinations, the cell phone towers, the introduction of metal into our skies with the all the chemtrails and such. It's when you get the chemtrails in your system, then you get this dissonance, and then you open up the inner brain with these frequencies. It allows like the calcification of the pineal gland that shuts down the soul connection. So it's all this. Alana Friedman does a great story, a great show on this. But it's trying to create transhumanism just to have people without souls. There's this free will stuff is real persnickety, and the folks up on top of the pyramid don't like us having that. They're the only ones that can have free will, and we all, it is just an illusion, a thin veil of free will that we experience here, but. And they're trying to destroy it on us, and they're trying to wreck our kids by feeding them all these vaccines. So, and the cell towers are very much part of that. And live blood analysis of this, people who are affected by this, the 4G towers, we're having clusters, cell clusters, and their blood cells were all clustering in live blood analysis, and now we're finding that all these people are coming up with this blood clotting stuff, and it's all the same. It's like this every single introduction from the radio when the Spanish flu, the first COVID arrived, was concurrent with that introduction, and each virus, each consecutive virus of COVID. Some form of virus that was introduced corresponded to an introduction of a new energy pattern. And indeed, when this COVID is COVID-19, it's everywhere, was showing up everywhere right at the same time that they were introducing all these 5G towers. So and they try to blame it on a virus, but it's an electronic manipulation of the bio.
It's super fascinating because you look at the switch of what happened with etymologically speaking, right? And technologically speaking, the switch that happened, like we switched our technology of how telephones were working, and then now we're on cell phones, and they run on different waves, right? They run on completely different frequency levels, and the word tele just means like far off usually, like, and you could trace back to etymologically, and then phone is like communicate. So it's like, okay, well, cell, I'm wondering what the word cell, why is it cell? Like, I don't know if it has to do with silicon, if it's like because of the invention of silicon, that's where we got it, and that's like how why we have internet, why we have quantum computing, or if it literally means cell, as in cells within the body, to communicate with the cells in the body, and to be able to contort that and to be able to control that, or if it means on an energetic level, energetic cells of the atmosphere, through wave forms and things like that. And there's this I've been studying a lot of the history of mirrors lately, because it just, I don't know why it just came to me, and I was like, okay, I need to start looking up the history of mirrors, like the deep history of mirrors, like where does the divination of mirrors come from? Because I was really interested in the spiritualism movement, that, you know, in the late 1800s. And I was really interested in seances, and because I'm studying occult, right? I'm studying esoteric and occult. So I'm like, okay, looking into that. And then I was like, okay, go ahead, dig back. Where did the spiritualism movement come from? Oh, it came from like the Renaissance magic movement, you know, and the whole movement of the Renaissance period. Okay, well, where did that come from? Right. And so it goes all the way back to ancient China, ancient Egypt, and ancient Mesoamerica. And it got me thinking when you said that women are getting this feeling of being fried by these energies. Well, they would
Like
wear,
bacon.
like bacon specifically, Sir Francis Bacon, Roger Bacon, the Baconian family line, the Baconian ciphers, and the Baconian mysteries. Is yet we're keeping that one under the wraps, but we got some works coming for the Baconian mysteries. Don't you worry.
I will.
Oh gosh, it's so good. I will, you know, I will munch that motherfucker to death. Anywho, so in Mesoamerica, what they would do, you know, Tezcatlipoca was the god of smoking mirrors, and it
Mm.
might have, you know, that it might have been a feminine god. I know some people will say differently, but I think a lot of the reason that the Europeans had such a problem with Tezcatlipoca was because, well, one, it was really powerful to the people of Mesoamerica, and they could not handle that. They couldn't handle their paganism, supposedly on an exoteric level. That's what they tell us, or they were so fascinated with their their ability to speak with spirits, and they were so fascinated. And I think that the ancient European occults were so fascinated with talking to spirits that they needed to get all of the information, and they have been on an information just getting all the information, taking it, getting it, collecting it, suppressing it, keeping it, refining it. And you need, like, you can be initiated to 33rd degree, but you'll never, you know, have like the true codex of what really was going on, because there's the deep vault, right? But anyways, scratch all that, and you look at these amazing spiritual people, and they would wear mirrors on their headdresses, they would wear mirrors on their heart chakra, and they would wear mirrors on the smalls of their back. Because why, you know, like, I don't know, but I think that there's this, like we're talking about, there's this attack of energy coming at all angles,
To
you know.
reflect the energies.
Exactly. And so we're not doing that anymore. I think there was even attacks of energetics coming into our body before the cell phone, you know, before these towers. And we're not doing anything to reflect them, because it's all woo. If you even believe that there's an energy in an auric field, you're basically like on the outcast of society to even think that we even have a toroid field, or the consciousness is connected to this field. And you know, but we need to bring the mirrors back. We need to bring the the information back to people, that we need to protect our energy fields, you know, from all angles, not just the front side, and not just your head and your private areas, but also from your back, because your back is very important. It's where you lay down. It's where, you know, it's your lateral grounding cord. It's very, very important.
It's interesting. I wonder if the ones on the back were prescribed for kidney issues. That's immediately what comes to mind.
Hmm.
That, you know, to guard the kidneys,
Mm-hmm.
the arenas.
Yeah. The beans, man. You gotta protect your
Yeah.
beans.
So how can we hijack all this and put a different syncretic overlay and
Yeah.
frequency that you know, modulates this dissonance and brings it back into order? That's kind of what I've been, you know, trying to figure out. You know,
Yes, I have a big theory on this.
Please.
I think that all the mamas should always eat all the placentas.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the T cells and all of the full estate of every baby born will be complete. I think that it all starts with our obstetric practices. And I think the placenta is the first raping experience. We are removed from our history. I think of it as the family tree. I think of it as the tree of life. I think that when parents adhere to the written law and conscript their child into two-dimensional reality, it's the first step in the wrong direction. And that is the tree of knowledge that Adam and Eve accepted. And they didn't get a chance to even know there was such thing as the tree of life. The tree of life wasn't even in their purview. They were kicked out. And after they were kicked out, we were told it's a good thing they didn't get to the tree of life. That would have been a real doozy. That tree of life, I believe, is the placenta. And I believe that is why we are not in tune with the animals around us. The animals around us are still in the garden, and we've been removed from the garden. And this goes back to the Mississippi River. And this is the functional application that I think is that could maybe be brought to the forefront in education. The Mississippi River, I believe, is the placenta of this country. And I also believe that there are people in high places who know this fact, that it's not just a metaphor, it's not just a coincidence, it is a powerful truth of the realm that we're in. And I have some visuals. Am I able to screen share? I would love to flash some really creative concepts for you guys to maybe ponder, because if we're looking for functional, a way to convey this information to to those who come after us, I think some of these ideas might be very valuable to bring to the forefront of the conversation. Am I good?
I think so.
So I got a few just, and these are just some of, it says I can't yet.
No.
These are some creative graphics that are not all mine. Some are from my friends over on the Weaving Webs that started me on this path. Okay, sweet. Thank you, homie. Let's see.
I like just really quick want to touch on that, because I think that there's this like Ouroboros kind of visual you get, like if the this was true in older cultural times, that to keep the placenta and to reestablish it back into the woman's body, and then thus in turn that get all that stuff she just lost, you put it back in, and so then the child can get it from the milk. So there's genetic DNA, genetic memory tied in there. So that is definitely an important thing to reestablish.
And much like any food that looks like an organ is beneficial to that organ. And so imagine how many organs we have that resemble the placenta. This is kind of blurry. Sorry for the quality here. I'll try to stop moving. So this is a map of the Mississippi, a rough map of the Mississippi. And it, I believe, is the actual Nile of the Old Testament. In Isaiah 11:15, they list 7 rivers of the Nile. The word Nile is a generic Greek term for river. It's non-specific. But if you're going to imply that there were 7 rivers on the Nile, you are not talking about the Egypt that we refer to today. It is more likely you're referring to the 7 rivers of the Mississippi. There's one that's not on this map. It's the Red River. It's down here at the bottom. Red River does not have an arrow. So these are the 7 rivers of the Mississippi, which make a menorah. It makes the shape of the menorah.
There's a menorah mound too.
Do you know where?
Can't remember. It's up in Ohio, off of Ohio, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, somewhere around that area.
Very nice.
If you look at the menorah too, it looks like a bunch of half circles and ringlands, if they're but they're not connected fully. The
mystery of the menorah, I believe, is powerfully encoded in this sacred shape, the sacred relationship of the Mississippi, and it's what you could call a geomantic placenta. It was the channels for nutrients and bounty to come and go in and out inland from the Caribbean. So this is just a beginning point for something to think about. And I want to maybe substantiate that the powers that presume to be are in the know about these correspondences that I'm bringing forward here. Here's a standard menorah, is generally 7 candles. It has the number 7 has a very powerful harmonic relationship to Venus. This is a magical square of Venus. And I believe it's encoded in Da Vinci's work. The Miss Isis was Sepi. Sepi means 7. Sepi means separated. Sepi is a very important, multifaceted term. But I believe that Da Vinci was indicating that the Miss Isis was removed. The story of old land claims have been usurped. We'll just leave it that way. That there were old bloodlines that related to the Mississippi and maybe the Knights Templar. But this is an interesting indicator that this menorah and the sacred relationship of the menorah is very well known in high places. And this is the HOR, House of Representatives. And they are babbling all day long. And what does the Mississippi River do? It babbles. It babbles all day long. This is the whore of Babel. Very interesting. And to some degree, I am coming at this with a bias. Very few people enjoy what comes out of this establishment here. So I do think that this shape and the secret of this shape is well known and very functional in high influential places.
That's syncretic all on its own. That's syncretism to a T, man.
Right. So this is a fun one I put together. This might be a nothing burger, but I just put it together. And this is an interesting one. Have you guys seen what the kids are calling Chef Boyardee?
I call him Mimel.
Mimel?
Yeah. Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana.
You think you might have just given him a new name. Thank you very much.
Chef Mimel.
Chef Mimel. So this is a really interesting thread, and I won't go too far into it, but the eye line here is at the 41 degree parallel. It's just above the 40, and it lines up. His eye line lines up. It starts with the I, Illinois. Oh, excuse me. Starts with the I in Iowa, an I in Illinois, an I in Indiana. That's 3 I's. That's the third I.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go to O and P. The third I is O pin.
Optics.
3 I, O P, and then it runs right through Providence. Eye of Providence.
But can I touch on this real quick? Because isn't there this ley line that runs directly from where your mouse is over to England?
It goes straight to Rome.
Oh, okay.
It goes straight to the Vatican. This 41 degree parallel lines straight up with the Eye of Providence, where H.P. Lovecraft was, and then goes straight over to Rome.
Actually, the 42nd.
42nd?
Yeah, that's the border between Mass, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New York, Indiana. That kind of goes right at Colorado, Wyoming.
Nice.
It goes right across there. And
right.
It hits Rome. It goes through Barcelona. It goes through.
It goes through Barcelona.
Yeah, as well as Beijing and Kyoto.
That's all the Olympic game places.
Oh man, that is so crucial. Peter, you are amazing. I got goosebumps. I could cry.
Good. Glad I could give that to you.
That's such a treasure. So Barcelona is the center of, that's where the UCC codes were born. And also I believe that the New Testament events actually happened in Barcelona.
There's many mountain ranges along the 42nd that go east-west. You know, and one of them is the Pyrenees, where the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage line goes right across northern Spain, and the Caucasus Mountains
Yes,
are also
Caucasus too, yeah.
also on 42nd, and Uintas, where right at the base of the Uinta Mountain is where Ghost Ranch, or the what's it called, the Skinwalker Ranch is.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, it's
Oh man.
Siskiyou Mountains over in California, Oregon, also east-west.
Gosh, this is so exciting. Okay, well, things get really weird. So this is known. This was like a thing in a year or so ago. A lot of people were making, you know, silly graphics about this, but I've kind of picked it up and taken it to a new level. So you see the shape of this throne is very interesting, that it tucks into Texas, where he might tuck his ass. Even I call this Oklahoma. This is Oklahoma, where he sits his butt. Even Can's ass. All of these things are kind of pointing at a strange little throne, maybe. But I also hold space for an even stranger image hiding in a larger, in a bigger picture. This is where. This is my buddy. He sent this to me. This is what sent me down this path. This is the original image, but this is what I'm getting at. I'm seeing an entire Sphinx, a classic traditional Sphinx shape, embedded into the Louisiana Purchase, and its paw. It's the last remnant of that namesake, Louisiana Purchase, is at the footprint, the tracking. This is the tracking of the history of this, maybe a geomantic shape. And Idaho is the probably the most pronounced aspect of its wings. And I have a couple other examples of how its wings. This is my hand-drawn work, and this is kind of gives you a full all in one place. You can kind of see my vision. This is my territories overlapped onto this strange Sphinx shape. And Peter, Skinwalker Ranch is right at the butthole of this Sphinx character. It's at the sphincter of the Sphinx is Skinwalker Ranch.
So it's the homunculi. The Skinwalker itself could be the homunculide butt baby of this manifested occultic syncretic situation here.
Yes, and what gets really weird, and if you didn't think this was weird, a lot of people in the occult world know the myth of the Knights Templar and their ritual of kissing the cat's ass. And that ritual of kissing the cat's ass, the story will never die. The story is preserved forever because it's so absurd. It's so just absolutely absurd. It's like a joke.
Can you give us a little more context on that? Because I have heard this on the spiders and everything, and I'm curious where this story lies.
I'd be more than happy to. It is the story of the Knights Templar in, I believe, 1312, out in France, outside of Notre Dame Cathedral. The King Louis wanted to infiltrate the Knights Templar organization. He sent some spies in to find out what their initiation process was, and then he found out that they were walking on and defiling the crucifix as an initiation rite. And then the next level of initiation was a dark candlelit room where the initiate would sometimes kiss the master of ceremonies in a inappropriate homoerotic sexual way, but the myth has expanded, and there is now a sensationalized version where they say that they were kissing the ass of a cat. And when that news got to the population went completely, they overreacted, which was probably predictable. the Pope sent out a papal decree called Vox in Excelso, which means voice on high, Vox in Excelso. And you'll notice the word vaccine hiding in the word voxin. Vox in Excelso was a papal decree maybe 80 years before. A pope had put out a papal decree very similar. And it was basically just saying that you guys got witches amongst each other, and you got to go on a witch hunt and burn and essentially it instigated the Black Death. There was a plague that befell the people because everybody went and killed all their cats because they heard that people were worshiping the cat. So it's a whole rabbit hole in and of itself, but it has to do with Jacques Molay. So the King Louis pulled out Jacques Molay and martyred him on Friday the 13th. That's the reason Friday the 13th is so important to the Templars. So thanks for coming with me on this journey, guys. I know it's weird and crazy, but I just had to share it because we are totally, we're touching on a lot of touch points for my work.
Awesome, man. Hey, you know, that's what we're here for, man. It's a group show, meeting of the minds, so people can expound upon their research. It's nothing. I mean, it's definitely a wild ride to go down here. Peter, were you about to say something? Sorry for cutting you off, sir.
Jacques de Molay, he was roasted over a fire, you know, on a rotisserie, and he spent his entire suffering in that torture, cursing everybody, cursing the King of France, cursing this and that. But yeah, it was not a good day for the Templars. No, I went down, but not on the same day, but contemporary, within a year or something like that. An earthquake hit Egypt and shook loose the entire encasing stone of the Great Pyramid.
That the white thin slabs that were on the outside
on the encasement, right?
Wow.
Wow.
So it was like the temple. You know, the Templars carried the knowledge of the Great Pyramid to the west, and when they killed Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master, it kind of like it killed that knowledge or corrupted that knowledge, and turned it into something evil instead of something that was from the light.
Wow.
So that curse and that, you know, that act of the church and state, which has a geomantic ley line connection with the Great Pyramid, might have been the thing that actually set the frequency that we're dealing with today, that's being broadcast from the Great Pyramid.
So it was altered, and now we're feeling the effects of the altered frequency of that.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
crazy fascinating. I mean, you would think that the casings would have a very significant purpose, since, you know, they were on the Great Pyramid, and the people who built that had very specific reasoning for putting that there. And you know, the cosmic alchemical aftermath we're all now dealing with, which is super interesting. We need to reincorporate the ancient resonance yet again if we really truly care about consciousness. But I don't know if people do care about consciousness. I mean, obviously the soul itself does, and there's the honing back into it, and we're entering in this, you know, this, I'm not going to talk too much about the age of Aquarius and all of that astrological stuff, because one thing I'm just going to sidebar all of the things I just said, basically, but I wanted to just say cathedral, you know, outside, you said outside of the cathedral, there was the cat situation, and cat, I think etymologically, I looked it up not so long ago, it means downward facing. And so cathedral, I hear him like a hole, like a drill, the drilling downwards, the grounding energy there. Brings me back into this thing I wanted to talk about before Gabe just did that awesome presentation, like a mini presentation inside of the show. I love it. But back to the resonance and to it's something that I think everybody can add to the pieces of the puzzle, because our audience really loves resonance and people are really tuning in to resonance right now. And even with this whole strange Tartaria subject that people are going down, you know, I don't necessarily vibe with most of it, but there's a lot of things that are really interesting people are bringing back up, and that's antiquated technologies. And that's something that we look at here when we're talking about these old ways, right? Is dowsing rods, the bells, the basilicas, the shapes, the structures, the ancient architecture. And maybe we could go around the circle and people can kind of like give their 2 cents on the areas that they've studied and the resonance that tunes in there, because I have this really fun concept in my head that is, you know, it kind of goes in what we're talking about earlier with, you know, the resonance being changed on Earth, and you know, these ley lines, and it, man, it's just so deep. I'm trying to wring it into a question here. I want to ask you first, Chad. Bell Isle. Is there any significance to bells as an instrument to Bell Isle in that area there? Because you got water, you got stargates, you got portal symbolism. Where's the tonal frequency to tap into that vibe?
Bell Isle in particular does have a Carolyn Tower that goes off 3 times a day.
Wow.
And you can feel it wherever you are on the island. You know, it's beautiful. But what I've studied more in particular is back at Hart Plaza. And pretty much all the parks I look at, one main feature will be an amphitheater. And as you know, the amphitheater is where you soak up the tunes and the tones if you have a concert or what have you. And in conjunction with the amphitheater, there's always, or 99% of the time, a body of water, usually a river. So I like to think of cymatics in particular. You know, when you're certain tones and frequencies making the water or the sand on a plate, making certain geometric patterns. And of course, our bodies are all water. So when we're down on these amphitheaters, and say for me, say going to electronic music concert or something, and you're soaking up these tunes and these tones, you got to imagine these cymatics, whatever symbol would make on that plate of sand or in that water, that same symbolism is being poured through your body. Whatever, if it's hexagon symbolism or pentagram symbolism, whatever that tune or that frequency is emitting, it's going through your body. And I think a lot of these promoters nowadays, a lot of these, they recognize that, and they have certain sound systems that they can manipulate those frequencies. And, you know, for good or bad, I can't say necessarily, you know, but I have an incredible time. But, you know, could they be manipulating just more than that frequency if they wanted to? And they, you know, obviously the answer is yes. But I think at the same time, we can go down there when there aren't that type of event. And particularly when you go down there alone, say at 5 a.m, and you're the only one there, the frequencies and the vibrations you pick up are totally different. And I think that's where we can actually utilize these pieces of landscape that may, in some fashions, have been built as catalysts to manipulate us. But, you know, that's why I think it's important that we talk about these places, because we can utilize them. You know, they don't have to be there to manipulate us. They can be there to be utilized just like the ancients did. That's where the importance of this comes in. These were ancient sites that the ancients went to connect. And we can do the same thing, man. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the tones and the frequencies and the vibrations in these particular piece of landscapes. And they change. You know, it's a different vibration at the electronic music concert than it is at 5 a.m. when I'm by myself. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, and all these places have that too. They have that water, and they have that amphitheater, and they have that certain location where, you know, you're supposed to, that's why it's built. You're supposed to go there and soak up those tones and those tunes and those vibrations, you know, and purposeful in some ways, but we can manipulate it in however we want to manipulate it also.
This is kind of maybe off, but maybe it's not as off as I think. But the idea of feng shui is to have like these different elements within your own home or space. And I'm wondering if there's some type of feng shui element to these structures and stuff, of having a water element, a fire element, earth element, and different things around. And maybe is that why they're using these fire type gods, these Bel or Cernunnos or whatever, as that aspect.
That's fascinating. I'm just want to touch on that real quick because just I think it was yesterday in the Telegram chat, and there is relevance there. Right? I mean, especially when we're talking about syncretism, and feng shui itself it's old. It's very ancient and it's beautiful. I love feng shui. I have a couple books on it that I'm not far enough into yet. I need to, because Eastern mysticism really is truly like the foundation of most things in Western society. It all stems off of Eastern mysticism, in my opinion, obviously with iterations. But because I just brought up the bells, but then you just talked about ball and bell, these interchangeable vowels. And it's super interesting because when I think about bells, I do think about and you could tie it into the ancient Eastern world as well, because they were really fascinated and used the sacred geometry of the bell shape in their structures. Like you see a lot of these straight, huge bell structures, and step pyramids can be shaped like vimanas, or the concept of vimanas, and then even further, like a spire is almost like the bell handle, and so why are these buildings, these huge pieces of architecture, shaped like a frequency tool? And in ancient India also, there's this little thing that you hold, there's a bell and this other little thing, and one's the masculine type of scepter, and the bell is like the feminine there. And kind of going all over the place with this, but um I actually am curious to get the Peter's take on the bells and resonance of the syncretic places, like some of these major cities, and they're not necessarily like the cell towers and the bad frequencies, but the harmonic frequencies, and something you've noticed with that.
Your Allan Poe, the ringing of the bells, 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 bells. I don't know.
Yes.
He was coming down off of heroin or something, and he was a wicked addict himself. But it's just, my head, the ringing of the bells. But a good friend, Mary Hardy, she's in Allegan, Michigan, has a pyramid complex out there in Allegan. Has a conference every year around the ISIS holidays of July 26th. And Mary is she talks about the sword and the cup. Like all these cities have this sword, the obelisk, and the cup, the fountain. So she's developed this holy vortex prayer, which is based on vortexes that are kind of replicate that what an earth energy vortex expresses as, which is the same as what the interior of the earth is, as far as like it's a 1 to 5 thing. The center of the vortex has this circle in it, and that's 1, and then there's 2 similar size rings on either side. But that's so she does this thing with the UN prayer of peace and unity, the great invocation, and it's like from the point of light, you get this spiraling downwards, and then a point of love, you have a spiraling downwards, both in a counterclockwise motion, and then to balance out that vortex, she suggests using, from the center where the will of God is known, it's a clockwise vortex that's spinning around that. And then the will of man is another vortex. So you can use things like this, like it's like this intentional prayer that's set to a universal chord and gravity form, and you place the intention at the center and use these like obelisk forms to ground this intention into place. So she and her crew, myself included, we go around and do these light actions on these city centers to try to bring balance to the city. And this came out of the work of the Brighton Fountain Project, the Fountain International, which is this outfit that suggests everyone should meditate for peace for their town by focusing on whatever's in the town center square. In Brighton, England, they had the mods and the rockers battling it out. There's junkies everywhere, you know, it's just everybody's getting robbed. It was really a mess. So they started doing this practice and, you know, just disappeared. All this stuff just stopped. And they continue to this day. But that fountain is like a series of cups that the water comes down and cascades. So that cup, you know, of course, is speaking of the Grail, and you're you know, kind of like holding, you know, the collective consciousness of Christ in that. So that brings in all that compassion and love. So but there's yeah, I think that's how you do it. You know, you just use what's existing and project over it these frequencies. Sedona is a series of bells, if you will, like Bell Rock, and all those you know, all those what's it called, mesas or buttes. They have a core that's of like a very high iron content that doesn't erode. That's why it's in a bell shape coming up to this point. So each one of those things has a clapper in the middle of it. So it's like this, I think they're called clarions, you know, where you play bells like a piano, but you have all these different tone bells. Yeah, it's like that.
Crystal bells too.
Yeah, so you could, you know, play those bells in Sedona. You know, they are being played by you know, like Mary, you know, Mary Hardy. You know, she's what's it called, newsakara.com or org.
Did Hardy or did they? Is that like a couple? Didn't they write a book on pyramid power?
Yeah. Mary Hardy kind of did the definitive pyramid energy book back in the 80s. That everybody references. And she was essentially communicating the work of Ken Killick, who was a Canadian guy that kind of figured out how the pyramids worked, and she employed all those techniques in the construction of her pyramid there in Allegan, Michigan, on Dumont Road. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say where she was. Over there. Hey, Mary, I want to sleep in your pyramid.
I've actually slept in Mary's pyramid.
Yeah, have you? Yeah.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Mary Hardy was the very first lecture I ever gave was at there.
Really? Well, you Peter and Chad, you guys got some cool like interwoven synchronicities with your work. That's kind of sweet.
Yeah, I actually saw her prayer in progress the first time I met her, and I didn't really know what to expect. I was kind of just getting into this type of thing. It was my first lecture, like I pointed out, and there was a giant storm headed towards her Temple of Saqqara, and we were putting the whole thing on hold, so to speak, and they did their vortex prayer, and this storm went around the Temple of Saqqara. I mean, it split, went around, and reemerged on the other side. And,
wow.
I mean, it was legit, man. It was legit.
Yeah. Her husband, Dean, was watching it on TV at the time on their weather channel. And what are you doing out there, Mary?
Yeah.
Hey, you better be thinking that woman. You better be thinking that woman.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's super cool because you're in a pyramid right now. Look at behind you. You're in a pyramid right now. As you're talking,
you say it kind of. Yeah.
It's so cool.
Man, that's I witnessed this miracle kind of like that back in Hawaii when the flow back in 2017, there's people's houses being burnt down from lava as it's flowing down, and there's very in tune Hawaiian woman who's stayed in her house. She's like, I'm not going anywhere, there's no way. And she tuned in, and she said, she got her prayers, and you know what happened? The lava perfectly spit in a perfect circle around her property, completely preserved her house while everybody else was fleeting out of the way. So the power of prayer, and look at the shape that it made. Perfect split and circle. These are the shapes. That's why, and I wanted to bring up earlier too, to anyone listening, right? We talk about pentagrams, and this stuff. There's the light side and there's a dark side to things. And it's the way that we want to use this cosmic code of divination to tune into it. And so, we could take the pentagram back, baby. Hell yeah. That's a Merkaba on its own. You get into Merkaba and the wheels start, you take, okay, so take it from a 2-dimensional space, right? Start spinning it in a 3-dimensional. And then you see the circle is a spinning orb now, right? And then you're writing in that consciously. And I wasn't going to tell the story, but I am going to tell it anyway because it's just fresh on my mind. 2 nights ago, my neighbor's house caught on fire 100 yards away, 100 yards away. And they're like, I don't even know what is going on because, like I said, I've been working with the solfeggio scale tuning forks. And the other night I did something that I don't know if I'm going to ever do again. And I asked to open a portal because I was really interested in what other energies I could feel, because I'd been feeling so many energies from these tuning forks, and I was waving them around and doing like my ceremonious thing that I do with zero training, and it's zero like like I'm kind of just doing this on the whim. And now I'm like, I'm not saying that I did open a portal and it came down and striked on this property, but it was so close in timing to when I was asking to see something and asking to feel something, asking to open something up. It was so synchronistically close in timing that it scared the living shit out of me about working with the frequencies, because I've been looking into the history of mirrors, wondering about scrying, wondering about if you were to tap resonance frequency and to make solid state into a liquid state, or to take crystalline consciousness and make that into a liquid consciousness, to change the state of matter, if that's what our ancestors were doing. I was very curious about that, and I don't know if that's what happened, but it, like, luckily the neighbors were gone, they were on vacation. And the other funny thing about this is, like, I had to do more digging to find out what was going on. And the guy's an electrician, and so they said it was like an electrical fire. But my other neighbor said that, well, that's crazy. I mean, the guy's been doing electric work for over 40 years. He's one of the best electricians in town. He helps people not have these problems in Northern California. And so I was wondering, and if, because it was in his garage where he had a bunch of ammunition and power tools together with all of his electrical work, if there was some sort of thing that happened and directly got pointed towards where the highest amount of like electrical stuff was at. I don't know. I don't want that to be true, because that scares the living shit out of me. But just life is so mysterious on its own that, like, I can't even start to fathom that I actually have a grasp or a grip on what's going on. But what do you guys think about that, about consciousness being able to change in material and matter form, as well as physical items in gaseous state and stuff like that?
Again, Mary Hardy, she quoted, she liked to quote the Hermetic adage, change the frequency, change the manifestation of mass. And that's, you know, it's like been part of the Hermetic code forever. So yeah, that's what you do. And you know, the geometries are frequency generators. You spoke of the phi, or the five. The five is phi, you know, ratio all throughout it. So it's a life-giving, you know, the pentaped man, you know, the 5 points of our appendages. You know, all that is so you know, they use it in curses because it gives life to the curse, or life to a demon, or but it, you know, it also gives life to a republic, like in Washington D.C. You know, life to an industry, like in Detroit. So but you know, they're all frequency attenuators, and if you use the I don't know, if you know, change that, you know, perhaps get back to the more pure form of it, the original form of what the pent was all about. You know, it's kind of like you know, the ET are coming here to get our DNA because there's some kind of original template there involved with it, and you know, it's like going back to the original to renew something. I don't know, but frequency is sound. Is a fella, John Hutchinson, I believe, from a Canadian fella, that he was levitating, you know, iron cannonballs with sound, and I mean, and frequency and stuff. And he was also healing after the Gulf of Oil, you know, when that New Horizons spilled all that oil in the Gulf. He went down there in a boat, and it was using frequency to
congeal the oil,
to oscillate the molecules of the oil, and it just became an inert substance that wasn't. So.
Whoa, who is this man? I'm gonna dig into him.
John Hutchinson. He was shut down by the Canadian government.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, a number of times, and he moved to the States, but married a gal in Minnesota. But they've been, I'm not sure if John's still alive or not, but he probably is. Yeah, he did some great work, and
fascinating.
A genius with sound and frequency. So,
wow.
You know, that's the, you know, that's it. You know, it's like I in this workshop I did, I kind of got in touch with my hippocampus, and you have this hook. You know, hippocampus is like three fingers. These three fingers, and the thumb sticks out through your third eye, and the other two hook into the two halves of your brain, with the pineal gland kind of sticking up there. So,
like
this is like a frequency. You know, it's how our intuition works. It's, you know, like a tuning fork, and getting, you know, what I was getting was to oscillate that at the God frequency, in order to you know, bring myself back into in alignment with my soul self. So, you know, whatever that, you know, the solfeggio tones, if that's the God frequency, you know, in the beginning there was a word, you know, love, light, sound, and abundance. You know, that's kind of you know, so that sound piece seems to be in the waveform of the Aquarian age that we're coming into. You know, that's all part of that. You know, change the frequency, change the manifestation of the mass. So.
Wow, beautiful. Well, looks like we just had a sweet pop in. We got brother Michael on. What's happening, sir?
Gentlemen, I apologize for my late arrival, but I'm happy to be here. And I think this is the thing. Like, didn't Raj show up like about an hour, an hour late the last time we spoke? So I guess I'm just following suit. But don't let me interrupt. Let me hear what's going on. I'll be happy to jump in anywhere I can. It's great to see all the faces. Peter, I'm Mike Wan. We haven't met before. I'm a big fan of your work. You've been very influential on me, and I'm very grateful to be here with you today.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, good to be here with you too. Yeah.
Wow, I'm kind of freaking out, guys. Michael and I have talked a couple times, and it's always a synchronicity to see you, Mike. It's always a blessing, but I got to tell you something really amazing is happening.
All
A
right.
very close friend of mine was expecting to hang out with you today in Austin. And now I'm hanging out with you instead, and she's gonna
Now
be
you're hanging
so
out with me.
jealous.
Well, Mike, you're in Austin, huh? You're in Austin.
I was supposed to go to this thing in Austin. I'm in Pennsylvania right now. I'm in Lancaster, if you know where that is. And I was going to fly out to Austin because there were 3 events which I could have participated in one weekend. And I like efficiency. So if I'm going to go and travel, I want to go and hit a couple different things. And then I was really looking forward to the trip, to be quite honest. And it kind of fell through. Like the flight was canceled, and then just the machinations of how it was going to be fixed didn't work, and so I ended up not going to Austin, and I stayed here. But as Gabe indicated, it was it opened up all these other different doors, and as that wave collapsed, a new wave opened. I guess I don't know.
Oh man, I'm so excited to see you, Mike. Great to see you, man.
Thank you.
Mike, have you met Chad?
No, but Chad's name has kept coming up. I've heard his name in the last month 10 times. So dude, it's nice to meet you. And I'm excited to see about what we're going to talk about, or continue talking what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, you have impeccable timing, Mike, because my next question was to Chad, and I was curious if there's any type of triangulation or alignments between Detroit, Philadelphia, and Susquehanna or some other location. Does it form any type of triangle in the area? No.
I'm waiting for someone else to answer. Or are you asking me to respond?
Anybody?
No,
I'm just getting comfortable.
Chad's muted.
My apologies. My apologies. I haven't noticed any direct correlations along the same lines or anything. Detroit's on the 42nd. They're on the 40th. I have noticed some, correlation synchronicities as far as what we find along the mountains.
Lost you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
He must be saying something really significant because
I have satellite internet, so I apologize.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I'll take a swing at it, or I'll throw my
So yeah,
is if you take 3 points, assuming they're not in a straight line, you're going to be able to triangulate something. And for me, that's the fun of this dance of being able to interact with the realm, with reality, whatever you want to call it, is okay, these 3 things are calling my attention. Of all of the infinite things that could be calling my attention, we'll use this example: Detroit, and you said the Susquehanna River, and Philadelphia, and then being open to well, how do they triangulate? And then, this is at least my approach, and allowing those patterns to kind of unfold within my awareness, within my consciousness. So it's my take. If you I look at it very much as an art form. And if your art form, if your technique is flexible enough, you can paint a masterpiece, and you can find that masterpiece in any 3 points, which are, I listen to myself saying that. It's also kind of a nice way to duck out of that. I don't know. I haven't seen anything really specific. But in a general sense, you can find something, I think, anywhere. And that's what's neat also about this group. What we have are a variety of different perspectives of the different art form. And so we can see all of the different ways in which we can bring to a new understanding of the interconnection in, life or the realm.
Yeah. With you, Mike, you had mentioned that Ross Ben, his research kind of made you go, oh, I can talk about this too. So now I'm going to start talking about Susquehanna. and so on. And then you guys went up to Pittsburgh and found out there's all kinds of connections in Pittsburgh
Totally.
that go back to Philadelphia. And so that's why I was kind of asking the question is there something else that connects Pittsburgh to to Detroit, or Detroit to Philly, or does the Susquehanna connect in to any of these types of cities also? Is there some type of convergence going on?
I see. I think Peter's got something to share.
Yeah, it's actually, again, it's quite a salon out there at Mary Hardy's, but I was presenting my rings, my Lord of the Rings presentations and such, and this one car designer, he likes to remain anonymous, from Detroit, took my perspective. I was saying, well, ley lines run in this line, but you can also create circles like a ley line with a series of natural and cultural features. So he took that information from Detroit, which is where he's located, and used that as a center point, and brought an arc out to Chicago. And he ended up with this ring of cities, from Toronto to Pittsburgh to like Indianapolis, and I can't remember all the various cities, but it was like Columbus, and it was just this perfect arc of cities that were nested Detroit. So and if you take a line from Toronto, it goes right through Detroit over to Chicago as well. So there's it's also a railhead that goes right through that way. And, so it's this like a ring of industry, this ring of economic power that was, all those cities were placed where they were because they were at confluence of rivers, or had some kind of natural resource that allowed a city to spring forth from the place. But it wasn't just kind of a Masonic, well, we'll put a city here and make it a big circle. It was like that, that form that Gabe was talking about, and the tarot circle, and like a landscape geometry that just kind of emerges from the land because of the presence of a power somehow. But I can't remember the exact, but it's the radius is Detroit to Chicago. That's what I have to offer on that.
Yeah, I was thinking too, like the menorah that Gabe presented. If you turn all those concentric circles upside down, it kind of looks like Atlantis and like the pathway into Atlantis. And also a lot of the power symbols to turn objects on have like a circle with a dash going through down the middle like that. So I'm wondering if there's some type of current flow that gets taken into these circles to be distributed through. I think it's very interesting that you're saying, Peter, that maybe these weren't planned out, that nature kind of planned them for people to plan out in a way, is more syncretic than it was like predetermined.
And like intuitively found out through like some sort of meditative or divinated process or something.
It's a sort of self-organizing mechanism, like a beehive creates a beehive because that's what bees do, and maybe humans do this. I don't,
And so, and to the point, like what I was saying before about the creative element, I would say is the exact same principle in action, but internalized through consciousness. It's like, it's going to happen. And when you as an individual, me as an individual, what have you, like we take this mechanism, I'm putting the head wherever it is, and we apply it with like this creativity, whatever we look at, like this thing just is going to naturally pop up. And how does that pop up? Like, this is what I'm drawn to. This is what's interesting to me. It's like, and then these things, like, you find them. Like, what I would think is, so what I like to do, like, this is how a game I like to play, is like what Peter was talking about. When you see these arcs and you recognize there's like, oh wow, all of the cities on here are like industrial powerhouses. And then, like, whether that was pre-planned or not, but when you have that awareness, and like when that becomes real, like, how else can you play with that? Like, when you're on that circle somewhere else, and like maybe even in a geometric like pattern to one of those like super points where Chicago or one of the other major cities is, like, what can you sense that? Can you play with that? That this to me, all of this remains just like kind of mental masturbation until you actually go out and say, like, how can I go and begin to have change and effect or something measurable in my actual experiential reality? I mean, that's the real fun for me. That dance, that test.
Nice. That brings something up in my thoughts. So all of my life, I've identified as a Leo in tropical astrology. And it has recently been brought to my attention that I might actually be something other than a Leo in sidereal astrology. And I'm coming to terms with that possibility. It's kind of shaking the ground under my feet, but it resonates with a deeper truth that I never really thought about. But what really hits hard is that I live in Cancer in my territories. I live in my sidereal location. And that is just hitting home on a level I cannot deny. And so theoretically, what I'm saying is the actual tangible application to what this might offer to other people is that there might actually be an ideal location on the earth for you, for healing, for finding a better place for you to resonate with the space around you.
There's an actual thing for that too. Like, people specialize in that. I forget the name of that.
Astrocartography.
Astrocartography. Thank you.
That's it. And
but your point, Gabe, I think, I mean, we're kind of like switching gears, but this is one of my favorite topics in the entire world, is when you begin to go, like, if you speak the language of astrology, and if you found astrology to have some degree in truth because you've like looked at your natal chart and you've looked at yourself, you're like, oh wow, like this there's some truth to it, and then you begin to identify with it, and then you get to the logical truth, like, holy crackers, there's half the astrological world that's got a completely different set of truths about astrology, and they're going by this, and where they're saying the sun is like in a different sign. And then you're forced to ask yourself, well, what's the fundamental truth? Like, certainly, like, and then you start asking those questions, and like that's a topic, or you could go and unpack that for a while. But the ultimate truth, at least I came to, or the conclusion I came to, is like, it's that malleable. It is that changeable when you begin to bring consciousness. So this goes back to, like, identifying, like, you, like, on a map. So you got a map. Like, maps are like, what are the map? They're two-dimensional representations of stuff we don't even know. Like, we don't even know maps are real, but we're treating them as real. So they're friggin' real. It's the most real we got. And now we start playing it with consciousness, and it changes, just like within astrology, just like on the map. And then, like, that is like the real takeaway, in my opinion, is like, everything seems to be really malleable, and the more logic you can put to it, aka the more you believe it, like, the more like solid it becomes. That's not a problem, that's a quality.
That's super fascinating to think about, because the first visual I got ties back into this, the syncretic overlords of, like, they understand the malleability of what is. And so we have this ancient understanding of zodiac, right? As above, so below, the constellations in the sky, the constellations on earth, and how they correspond. And then the cyclical ages that we go through, right? So studying the cyclical ages, and they have their zodiac meaning, or they have this philosophical meaning. But if these syncretic overlords could change the tuning or the resonance or the malleability of that to make it their reality by making us think that it's our reality, that is some next level necromantic type of shit, man.
I love
There's-
that.
I mean
speechless.
that. So there are a couple things. So there's the purely like power of mind, and then there's like this like middle layer of people who understand like maybe a little bit more of the mechanism of the realm which we're in and how to manipulate it. And what I'm thinking about specifically is like the whole idea. I think it was like in the 1700s where the International Music Society changed the hertz frequency of what middle C is. And then what is that implication where like middle C is changed like by, and like that has a real impact, just like what you're saying. And like, the question I don't have an answer to it. Like, this is something I would think would be like a thing to play with or to observe is like, well, okay, if that's true, is my consciousness stronger than that? Can I push past that? Or is that even me? Like, you know, how do you want to meet that fact? Do you want to meet that fact that you are like beholden to these guys from then? Or like, you know, who knows? But like, that is where I get real excited.
So let me touch on that real quick, because as a musician, it is a huge deal, because when you go from 432 to 440, first of all, there's no mirroring, there's no like it's 444 is awesome, right? And it's beautiful, but what it is, it's a higher frequency, and which means it's faster. And so what I see is this necessity to speed things up, especially when you look at the timing of the past couple years. You know, they're in the driver's seat and they want to press on the fucking gas because they need to speed through this new cyclical age that's coming on, because supposedly, if the prophets are right, it's a time of great awakening. And so they're not slowing things down to keep it in the Piscean age and to hold in their seat. They want to speed through it and or put us through some sort of resonant loophole. Maybe that's a type of tuning fork that can put us through that black hole of sorts.
In the background of this conversation, there's an overarching, per se, of Atlantis. And you just said they changed the middle C, that note of the middle C. The middle C is like the Mediterranean, and supposedly through there is Atlantis, right? And we're also talking about these ring formation, these ring lands, Lord of the Rings, all these different ideas of frequency and power structures that are overarching and taking over the world as it be, or the spirituality and whatnot. And so when you say they take away that middle C, it just made me think, oh, there it is again. And when I was talking about the power symbol earlier with the, you know, the arch and the line down the middle, that's exactly what the Mediterranean looks like, and the exit out into the Atlantic. It's that same type of idea. So I just wanted to throw that out there too.
Anybody?
Oh man,
yeah.
I love the middle C thing. Is really, I think that's crucial. I'm so glad that was brought up. Middle C, yeah, it definitely has that Atlantean, that center, you know, the middle. Yeah.
Did a thing back in the I guess early 20s. No, I mean back right after the change of the century. I did this thing to sound the ground with a tone for a chord, with a C sharp, with a tone for a C chord, a chord. It didn't really go anywhere.
I love C sharp. There's no, I mean, I'm not going to.
I mean, isn't that what an orchestra's tuned to? I think that was what I remember. And you know, the violin, the main, you know, the lead violin, it gets you a C sharp. Then everybody tunes to that, isn't that? and
Yeah.
and the cacophony of sound that, like at a party, that's a C sharp, and so it's kind of like, like the cacophony of the world is that C.
The C sharp would be the high C.
Yeah. So I don't know if that, maybe that's the frequency that'll change the, well, but that's the frequency it's the constant that's there all the time. I understand that's what when the I'm a Sufi order initiate, and my guru Hazrat Nai Khan, he was a musician, and like when he first came to America, he was like Ravi Shankar too. He was up there tuning his sitar and going on and on and on. And when he finished tuning his sitar, everybody started clapping and thought the concert was over. So, but the process, he said that the process of tuning a sitar also had to do with tuning the audience to prepare them to receive these sacred sounds. So, and so that he was like reaching the C sharp within everybody to, for them to receive this thing.
That is fucking next level thinking, because when you're doing meditation, right? When you're doing crystal bowl meditation or gong meditation, you're being led through this beautiful journey, and you're escaping your body. It's an out of body experience, but it's so in body because it's hermetic. It's conscious, it's physical. You're getting tuned all the way down from your oral self to the center of your cells, and they're vibrating out, and it's like this fractal goodness that's happening. And yeah, that's beautiful. And the sitar is, the lute, whatever, get out of here, lute. Sitar rings true. Also with the didge, you got a sitar and a didge going on. We're vibing hard,
right. Yeah, there's the didge has Jonathan Goodman, I think is his name. He was a sound healer and teaches that. And he had this book at a Dowser conference, and he said, "Here, I'm looking." It was a big book, and I sat down with the book and broke the chair when I sat down. I said, "No, there's something important in this book." So I was flipping through, and there was all these semantic patterns. Each page was, violin, this and that. And I came to the didge, and that replicated the exact pattern of that gravity field I'm talking about. The Earth rings, or the like the galaxy density of stars, and all that stuff. So when they play the didge, they're playing the Earth. They're communicating directly with the planet.
Like, it's crazy. The sound, like electronic music artists have to go through electronic filters, put on resonance, stack this filter onto this bass to get something that a tube makes. Like the circles that happen in the didge through the
Play it, man, play
it. Dude, my dog's like, "We're playing now?" Brings me the ball. No, seriously, animals and the didge too is next level. Let's go into magnetic anomalies. We touched on water, we touched on resonance, but let's touch on these like magnetic anomalies. Everybody in this group has probably come across in their research some sort of strange magnetic anomaly, and that could even be some sort of like paranormal experience. If you guys are comfortable sharing those things, and yeah, it's just fascinating. Syncretism and magnetic anomalies, I think, are hand in hand, in my opinion. Gabe, have you had any magnetic anomalies experience in your research or in your life?
A couple examples. I have had I had a guru when I was very young, and I don't know, this might have been more biomagnetic, but she heard that I was an aspiring healer, and she and she asked me to put my hands out, and she tested me. And this was I was very young. It was a very long time ago, and she told me to place my hands flat outward, and she put her hands a couple inches above my own, and I felt compelled to close my eyes. And when I did, time and space took on a whole new meaning. And I don't know how long she and I traveled together, but she was feeling me out on the spiritual plane. And then I opened my eyes, and she was nodding her head affirmingly. And she, as though I passed the test, she didn't really say much. And her boyfriend was next to her, and he says, "So what? Did you give it to him?" And she said, "Oh, no, he already had it." And I almost wept. I don't know what she was testing me for, but it was powerful, and it was really empowering as well for her to say that, it isn't the kind of thing you can bestow. It's something that I was already gifted with. So that was a beautiful experience with biomagnetism in an exchange with the accomplished guru. And I hold that close to my heart still.
Yeah, you definitely still have it. When you
Awesome.
talked about touching your hands, it was carried through the quanta. I really felt that. So thanks for that. Thanks for sharing that.
Awesome.
Thank
Wow.
you, Peter.
Awesome.
How about
I have an
Peter?
experience
Yes, Chad.
that happened to take place where many other anomalies have taken place and is known for magnetic anomalies. Can't prove that had anything to do with it, but it definitely felt different, so to speak. And I was coming home from my very first conference I ever went to. It was a Zachariah Sitchin conference in Chicago. And it was the first time I talked to like-minded people and whatnot. And I was actually headed home from the conference, just, feeling good. And I was traveling along the southern shores of Lake Michigan at that point, headed back to Michigan. And this light mist broke out over the highway, and this beautiful rainbow emerged. And I'm talking glorious. The end of the rainbow was refracting off the concrete, and it would refract into your car, where inside your car looked like the rainbow.
Wow.
So I thought at first I was going crazy or whatnot, but I looked over and other people were having the same experience. So it wasn't just me, people were driving like 20 miles an hour on the highway. So people were having this experience. So I hit the first exit, and I got up to the top of the exit so I could take some pictures of it, and I took some pictures, and it was an incredible experience. It's hard to even explain. I got goosebumps talking about it.
Wow.
Took these pictures, and I called my wife right afterwards. I still remember it perfectly. I just headed home listening to Bob Marley Redemption Song, telling my wife about this glorious rainbow and the great weekend. And that night I got home and I was exhausted. Hadn't even downloaded the pictures yet. And I had this dream, and I'm not a big dreamer, but I had this dream where I was floating up towards this rainbow, perceivably the same rainbow, and this orangish red, I'll call it a UFO, whatever you want to call, object, came out of the rainbow, hovered in front of my visual sight, and I guess you'll call it a transmission. I had in my mind, I had this investigate the rainbow, and I woke up, and it was real enough. I woke up at 3:14 in the morning. Still remember the exact time. Woke up, and it was real enough. I got up and I went into my computer room and I downloaded the pictures. And sure enough, in the picture of the rainbow, that orangish red object is clear as day, right
Shit.
there. And I cannot explain it. I woke my wife up. I was like, look at this, man. I just had this dream, and here it is. And I can't explain it. I didn't see it in person that I recall, but it's the most realistic dream I ever had. It took place right in this area of magnetic anomalies. And to this day, it's one of the, events that put me on this path, because I had to try to explain it to myself, And I've interviewed other people who in the same area have had somewhat similar situations where they had one guy told me he had dreams of his future, and those dreams came true. It's a guy who lives in this exact area. So, I can't prove any of it, but, it sure felt anomalous 100%. It was anomalous. It was part of the magnetic anomaly. I can't say, but possibly, man,
I think you live in a very dense area. I mean, speaking of just all the water, all the crystals underneath through the salt and everything. I mean, and just the stories that you've written, or the articles you've written in your book, talking about the stargates and the portals and everything, and then the masters of ancient gnosis coming over and building Detroit. Like, it just seems like, yeah, that's a huge magnetic anomaly on its own. It seems like that whole state almost is like, just, it's like there's like, I don't know, like in that biosphere like we were talking about earlier. That's super fascinating story, man.
Yeah, and there's stories like that all over the state, but one point or place I like to point out is what they call the Lake Michigan Triangle, and that's pretty much where I was along the base of Lake Michigan, right where this Lake Michigan Triangle is. And Peters, Michigan biome, when you overlay that pentagram over Michigan, the bottom left leg of his pentagram is almost identical to the Michigan Triangle. And actually, Mark pointed that out, and in that area, man, it's just crazy stuff happens. Ships go down, they vanish, planes vanish, people vanish and reappear, and it's quite regular.
This was on, I feel like Emily Moyer brought this up a while back, that 5G could have, so I think she was mentioning it makes her think of 5 grams. And she was thinking about sugar content in your blood and its relationship to 5G. But she also, in that weave, she brought up the penta G, the pentagram, the pentagon, the pentagonal shape that you're talking about. And I just thought I would put that back on offer, bring that back to the table. It has the 5G has a pentagon implication. It's also an E. 5 is an E. So it also encodes the egg.
Oh, the cosmic egg, huh?
Yes, EG and the 5G. And I think what the subtle,
egregore?
what the subtle implication is, and what we're supposed to maybe, I'm not trying to fearmonger, but I think what that also might whisper in some people's ear is that 5G is going to boil your egg. Which I don't think is necessarily true, but it's just something to think about. It might be a part of what's being whispered there.
Well, if your egg is a toroid or your auric field, and it's disrupting that, or it's cooking that, frying women's back like bacon, like Peter said earlier, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I would like to go through all the D's and or all the all the D's. Sorry, I said that because 4G would have been DG. So that's but wow. Okay.
Eggs and bacon go hand in hand.
Can I share a little story real quick?
Yeah, Mike.
Absolutely.
All right.
Don't talk with your mouth full.
I'm sorry. Sometimes spontaneity comes before politeness.
It's an anomaly.
Yeah.
I found myself living in this spot in southern Lancaster County, and my neighbors are all Amish farms. And every night, and I've been in Lancaster for a while, so it's like I'm not exactly foreign to seeing Amish, and I'm not exactly foreign to driving through parts of the county which are of high concentration of Amish. But this is the first time I've been neighbors. And so we're talking about 5G. And that's something like just the whole idea of technology. I mean, that's one of my hot buttons. And I talk about that a lot, the neo-Luddite philosophy. And to find myself now physically in the experience, every night, my favorite thing is it's usually around 7:30, I start just walking the back roads and going into like, like walking past all the Amish farms and like just looking at life without, I mean, it's not exactly no electricity, but it is 90%, 99% less than what you're accustomed to. And you begin to sense like so many differences in terms of like the flow of life. I mean, it's obvious at one level, like you can intellectualize that, but to actually like see it and to see it on the pace of the living pace of like walking it versus driving through, and then to feel it in your body, and if you're sensitive like that, it's been we talk, you posed the question about a magnetic anomaly. I wouldn't necessarily call this a magnetic anomaly, but I would definitely suggest, like, due to the lack of acute electromagnetism in particularly the mid-Atlantic, you don't find that very often. It's been a fascinating exploration and experience.
Wow. The mysteries of the Susquehanna continue and
It
deepen.
keeps pulling me in. Like, I didn't ask to move here. Like, it pulled me in. Like, I was living in West Baltimore beforehand. And it was in this spectacular place, like overlooking Leakin Park, but I was still in Baltimore. And what really is interesting is to be able to articulate and understand the differences of how they felt. In some ways, like Baltimore felt much more pure than where I am right now. I mean, where I am right now, it feels like there's a lot of like some sort of like deep residue, which is not found in Baltimore, like energetically speaking.
Yeah, Peter was saying earlier, it's like, everybody wants a ley line through their backyard, but you really don't, because it's just so much elemental energy going on. I mean, unless you're ready to use that, I mean, it's going to be just sticking around you like nobody's business. Peter, you got some magnetic stories, brother.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of magnetic stories. But Dorothy Leone, she's kind of the mother of Earth Ring. She was the one who identified the Grand Teton Earth Ring, the 19+1 that is been worked with by various people. But she was flying around and she noticed that the magnetic anomalies on aviation maps, where you lose compass bearing, they have to identify that, and they were all in this ring form around the Grand Tetons, which was 1,400 miles wide. Okay, and that's the same size as the Earth's inner core. So this Earth ring, that's the Teton Earth Ring, that goes out to Shasta and kind of out to the confluence of rivers in the Mississippi and down to Sedona in the south and up to Banff Lake Louise. Is this? It's the Earth's inner core projected up onto the surface. It's like a mud bubble coming in, but so. The place where the greatest amount of anomalies are reported are, of course, the Bermuda Triangle. And that, if you take the triangle, that's an equidistant triangle between Miami, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. That circle is also the same size as the Earth's inner core. So there seems to be some kind of percolation of magnetic energy that's coming out of the core and comes up through these areas that make the compass bearings go off. I've also found magnetic where I lived in Greenfield for 20 years, Greenfield, Massachusetts. That place has a known magnetic anomaly where your car rolls up the hill, that type of thing. There's one in Illinois, I think, and a few other spots. But interesting enough, the place that where that magnetic anomaly was, the folks are, whatever business went in there, it got burned down or failed or something. It was at a pretty good commercial location, but nobody could make a go of it until the Jehovah's Witness built it was really a cheap property because everybody knew it was cursed and nobody wanted to live there, but the Jehovah's were, okay, we're game, and sure enough, they're still there. They're having, it's a good place, and they have this big magnetic anomaly right in their, right out in their front yard.
Wow.
And the last one is when I was in my early work of identifying the New England landscape geometries for my book Gaia Matrix, the center line of it, which I call the chakra leg, goes from Connecticut on up through Western Mass and on up through Vermont and such. And that's also this geologic cleft between old and new North America. Like New Hampshire has all this granite, which is 250 million years old. And then on the other side of the Connecticut River, it's all 3 billion years old. So this the center line of this geometry I found is the geologic structure that divides the two. And a pilot volunteered, who knew my work, volunteered to take me for a spin on up to the Canadian border and back along this line. But he said I can't fly right along the line because I lose compass bearing if I do that. I have to, come over to the right or left of the line. So, it was. So yeah, their magnetics are everywhere. It's the magnetic field of the planet is down 25%. That's one of the crucial issues of our time. The magnetic field is in motion. Both the north and south magnetic field are moving in the same direction towards a point like Guam or something is like where they're both hitting, where they're both going. But it's thought that when this is the start of a pole reversal of our magnetic field, and as they get together, they'll just make a quick move and come back to their magnetic field, and there'll have to be an adjustment. And working as a stonemason, slamming rock, I'd hit a rock, 20 minutes would go along, and it's like, let's go walk away and have a cigarette, come back and hit it once, and the thing would crack. So what I learned from that was that there was this oscillation that kept in motion, even though I wasn't hitting on it, and that's paramagnetism. So whenever the Earth does this Earth shift of magnetic fields, the Earth has to adjust its own magnetic fields, and when you get the Kundalini rush and stuff, it's the Earth moves its plates, and the movement of the plates, that friction generates a paramagnetic force that enlivens the magnetic field again. So the magnetic field is part of both the Earth's inner core and that friction between inner and outer core and the movement of the plates on the planet's surface. And so those two forces generate the magnetic field, which sustains life and preserves life. So, it's a tough planet, and periodically we got to go through these changes in order to, but right now the like the supercomputer models of the magnetic field are all this, like just this mess of plus and minus, kind of like snakes and stuff, all over the planet. But in the geologic record that you see, coming off from the North Atlantic Rift, Mid-Atlantic Rift, you get these magnetic field changes every 20,000 years or something like that. You get, we're kind of overdue for one. Mm-hmm. And after that happens, there's this coherence of magnetism between north and south, where there's this clear demarcation around the equator, and it's like, man, I can't wait to reincarnate, and be in a planet with a fully charged magnetic field, well, I think with Stonehenge, that's when the planet and all those ley lines and such in southern England, that's when the magnetic field was charged, and the system was abandoned because the charge was lost in the atmosphere, which allowed for the tellurics to fertilize the fields. Essentially, it stopped fertilizing fields, so there wasn't any purpose in
tellurics.
Yeah, the Earth's field.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. So I have a few questions for Peter. or anybody who wants to jump in. One is, have you ever heard, this is, I believe, Islamic mythology speaks of pole flips, pole switches in the past. And I've heard, this is, again, just myth, but I wanted to know if you've ever heard of this, that in Islamic mythology, they say that when the pole switches are about to happen, at that verge of that turn, they say that gender roles become nebulous, and that people begin to come into this world and believe that they are in the wrong gender. Have you ever heard of that?
Ooh, that's a new one for me, but it makes a whole lot of sense.
It sounds like the kind of deity aspect too, where you had like the deities of their hermaphroditic deities, where there was like a heightened period of the gods where they were sexless too.
Bingo. Yeah. Does that resonate with anybody else? Have you guys ever heard of that, or does it just sound like it makes sense? I mean, that's why it stuck with me.
Yeah, I mean, that little magnet in our head, you know, when we were born was tuned to where the magnetic field was, and now it's moving in some totally different direction. So, you know, the natives talk about, you know, losing their bearings, because, and certainly we have whales and dolphins losing their bearings and grounding and such. So
So 2 points. One, about like losing your bearings. No one's going to know they're losing their bearings right now because their bearings has been robbed through GPS. No one knows where they are relative to anything. So that's just like that's just a social commentary. But secondly, so this is like a question. Like this is what I think is really interesting. Do you think the pole shift is happening like right, like not like the general, like, oh, it's been moving, like right now in this moment in time, like looking at all the craziness, like what seems to make sense, like why this is all happening? It's not just like, you know, manufactured stuff. It seems to be authentic in other ways. So like, what are your thoughts about what's happening right now in our realm relative to this idea of pole shifting?
Well, I'm wondering if it's like, you know, the apocalypse being spoken of too, because, you know, with the pole shift means a loss of power, and that could be an apocalyptic to, you know, forces that be. But that's a great question, Gabe. I think that was directed at you too, sir. So I want you to go ahead and jump on that there.
Well, my first thought is if the shields are low, then that fulfills an unveiling.
I mean, I think the stuff, like, I mean, just from my limited time of being alive and what I can remember being alive, like, there's some weird, like, it's weird right now, guys. I'm not joking. And like, when we talk about it, there's one thing, like, look around, like, is this what it looks like? Because all of this stuff is really, like, so much change is happening so fast.
So we were talking earlier about, and you know, I love this conversation because we've switched the topics, but they've morphed back into themselves in a different shape. So now we're talking about cyclical time again and the ages, and so this can reflect also on the turning of the poles, and you know, that concept of what was the word I just had? Apocalypse, right, or whatever. But we're talking about the pole shift and the powers that be that know and study the circles of time and cylindrical time, and they want to grasp the magnetics. So they change the frequency of music being played, because at one point resonance of the bells ringing throughout these different magnetized spots, like the ley lines, right? They had cathedrals on ley lines, and the bells would ring and they would ring at the same time because they were lined up. The cathedrals were lined up on ley lines. They would ring the bell and they would match with the other one. They're like, okay, hey, boom. Okay, we're keeping the resonance good. Everybody good, right? No one's floating away. Grandpa didn't drink too many bubbles. Okay, we're good. We're grounded. And so understanding that, and yeah, man, it's a fucking trip to think about this, because the pole shift is a really logical way to kind of put the understanding of the turning of ages into aspect. Like on a physical like we could explain that with physics, We could take the deep spiritual woo-woo goodness of it, which, don't get me wrong, that's my shit. But you can explain it with physics, and I didn't even put that together till now. So I'm digging into that, dude. Like, that's fascinating. Thank you, Gabe. Also, on the Islamic stuff, you know, here in the Western world, it's like we do not give enough homage to the ancient Islamic religion, man. That shit is so deep. Because when I was looking up the mirrors and doing the history of the mirrors and all that stuff, which I thought I had an idea what oh, Dan, okay, this is not a good time to talk shop, but those mini series I was talking about doing, right, the 3-parters, I had an idea. You do 2 parts of the foundation that are the history, and then you have a capstone episode that's like the modern, and how do you put it all together. So it's like a pyramid of episodes, history with the capstone. Anyways, so I was like, what is the capstone of the mirror series gonna be? And it keeps fucking changing. And but I was looking into, there's this deep mere philosophy that the ancient Islams have. They call it like, I think it's just their philosophy of like religious, like mere symbolism, but it's not physical mirrors, right? Like you find magic mirrors, scrying mirrors in ancient China, ancient Mesoamerica, and even potentially in ancient Egypt. Still haven't found any physical representation of that, but conceptually and intuitively it makes sense. But ancient Islamic, they talk about the mirror coming through us being the mirror ourselves and being a mirror of consciousness in God. So calligraphy in ancient Islam is the religion. Calligraphy is their way of being the mirror of God, and writing calligraphy is that tuning, right? The tuning of God. And so I found that super interesting, and I think people need to pay a little bit more respect and homage to the ancient Islamic religions and philosophies, because it's deep, and I think it can connect a lot of dots, and especially if they were talking about pole shifts, man. Like, that's connected, bro.
I want to bring some mythology into this mirror thing, because I was listening to the Pros Edas on Audible, because we're doing some Norse mythology for our next month, and I wanted to catch up on some myths. And one of the interesting ones was Thor went to go see this giant, and this giant's name was Skrymir. And
Wow.
What?
and I thought it was pretty interesting that his name was Skrymir, even though, I mean, it definitely sounds like scrying mirror. One of the things he did, the giant took his provision wallet, which was all his whole knapsack of his food and everything. And while he was sleeping, Thor went and struck with a hammer the sleeping giant in the forehead, and he was able to escape.
Wait, Skrymir is the sleeping giant?
Yeah.
So he smashed the scrying mirror in the forehead.
In the forehead. So the third eye, flat surface of your forehead.
Yeah.
This is kind of what I was thinking. And he was able to escape the giant that way. Because kind of what you were saying is like, being trapped in this mirror, or maybe I forgot what you said, but I know when I was starting to repeat the story, it made context.
That fits very closely with Hephaestus splitting open Zeus's head and giving birth to Persephone.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got Persephone right.
I don't think so.
Is it not Persephone? Is it the other one?
I thought it was like Athena or something.
It's a goddess. It's a feminine who comes from Zeus's
it's a
head.
female. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
So
Skrymir makes me think of Screamer also.
And so what is Skrymir the god of in Norse mythos?
He's just a giant. I think he's a rime giant or a frost giant, one of the two.
Fascinating. I'm not gonna lie, I gotta go close my greenhouse. I'll be back in just 2 minutes. Just gotta close my sides of my greenhouse, and I'll be right back.
So I can kind of weave on that Skrymir and the possibility of its sonic value, because Peter, aren't most of the names for ley lines don't they kind of have like a musical value? Like, aren't some of the other names, like I've heard of dragon lines and ley lines, but like telluric sounds like tell lyrics.
Mm.
It has like a singing value. And there are other really more obscure terms for ley lines, like isn't it like singing lines? Have you heard that?
Yeah, song lines of Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's it's frequency, it's sound, it's waveform.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And have you ever heard whispering lines? Whispering lines?
No, that's a new one on me.
Yeah. I feel like I had heard that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But I just love that they all have like a musical quality.
Yeah, the lay of the land. It's kind of, I guess Alfred Watkins, when he was the one that brought these alignments to awareness in England. And he found that a lot of the place names had, the families along these lays had like Finlay, Conlay, their suffix all had Ley, and so
Oh, that's interesting.
so that's why he called them ley lines. And the ley lines only exist in England, according to the powers that be over there. So in America, I look at ley lines as following these volcanic plugs often. There's a lot of association with volcanoes. So I call them LEI lines in honor of Pele. When you go to Hawaii, you get the lei put over your head and everything else. So that.
Oh, wow. And it's a ring.
It's a
That's
ring.
so cool. Dan, by chance, can you bring up an image that I'd love to share with Peter?
You can.
Or I can. I'm gonna.
Yeah. Roman is in charge, so I can't give. He already gave it to you, I believe. So
while you're bringing up that image, there's this fellow Rory Duff, excellent dowser, who is chasing ley. He's the only one I know that excellent research. He spent years going to the same ley line to see how it changed every day, and found that every 8 days the lines came into parallel form and harmony. What he called it. Otherwise they're kind of like going all over the place, and they're not. So in between that 8th day, so he said, what happens on that 8th day? And what he found out is that there's this plasma wave that comes off the sun that has this undulation, and every time we go through that plasma wave, things balance out and get harmonized. So what he's a scientist, and he went into starting to look at astrophysics. And found that the galactic plane also has a plasma wave that undulates at a wave of a 12,000 year cycle. And every 12,000 years, we go through a plasma wave. And we're just entering one of those plasma waves now. So it's like when we go through the plasma wave, we have this extra energy, the pole shifts, and that's what the pole is responding to in advance. That's what the sun is responding to in advance. Like when I was a kid, I always drew an orange sun, and now I'd have to paint a titanium one. I mean, that sun is just going through some changes. There's more energy, more light. So as we're entering into that, like we're kind of on the borderlines of that now, and as we enter into that. Field of high plasma, it will be in like late December 2024, and then we'll be going through that for a 200-year cycle. So when we're in that light field, we're protected from all those heebie-jeebies that were in the previous negative trough that we went through.
Wow.
And when we emerge out, as a changed planet, as a like our Homo luminous comes into being.
Yeah.
we you know, we you know, I mean, every 12,000 years there's, you know, like Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, Homo sapien sapien, you know, it's you know, it's like a beat, a galactic beat of evolution. So we're entering into that now, and the planet is entering into it as well, trying to you know, manage this.
Is what you're referring to? Is that like when they talk about the fluff? Is that the same cloud you're referring to? Like,
well,
like there's a term which
photon
scientists
belt.
talk about, which is fluff. I remember reading about like 10 years ago about us entering into it. I'm wondering if it's the same thing you're referring to, or if you know it by that term.
I don't know it by that term, but it sounds likely that it's the same thing.
It's interesting. It syncs up with the Pluto return from the birth of the United States from 1776. The Pluto is returning, and then we'll be in it for another Pluto return if it's another 200 years, give or take. That's very interesting. Well, so I wanted to share this. This is the Crowleyan tarot deck, and this is his moon card. Well, I should say this is the moon card that goes with that deck, and it has a very powerful correspondence with a volcanic imagery. I've put some embellishments on here. This is not its original form, but I just wanted to share this because we keep talking about volcanoes and how these waves and these arcs are following volcanic paths. And so in my territories map, this card lands directly on Hawaii. It's in the sign of Pisces, which is the two fish, and it has all of the ingredients. This magma chamber down here, reaching up to the surface, certain maybe frequency waves emitting from the volcanic chamber. And it also has all these sine waves, like you were showing, you know, these corresponding ebbs and flows. But I just felt compelled to share that because Hawaii and volcanoes keep coming up.
Are you guys aware of Vulcan as a planet? As a veiled planet, as I say, it's actually between oh goodness, wow. There's Vulcan is a planet. It's a veiled planet, as they say, and it's in between the sun and Mercury. Thank you. Yeah, so it's right behind Mercury, and so there's this other huge kind of connection between Vulcan, as you know, when you look at Vulcan worship as this other thing, because Mercury is a messenger between the gods, but Vulcan is in between them. So there's that kind of correspondence between those two, which is kind of fascinating in my opinion.
Is that the planet that's 180 degrees opposite us, that rotates at the same speed so we never see it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one.
Yeah. Isn't that blew my mind? I had this fellow chap on that his name is Philip Lindsay, and he's been writing books on esoteric astrology for 20 plus years, and just absolutely blew my mind with some of these things, the seven rays and rayology and the veiled planets going through levels of initiation, and Earth is an uninitiated planet, so to speak, which is kind of an interesting topic, because that could be talk of the cyclical ages, talk of this pole shift, you know, as a part of initiatory process. And we are in part of an initiatory process and a part of the mission of Earth's initiatory process as well. So
the secret societies reflect that also by process of initiation.
Yeah, that's that cosmic intuitive, like what inclined us to create secret societies of higher knowledge besides greed and power? Well, maybe, could be. I think a lot of times, especially construed in the way that it has been, but maybe when it first started, I mean, I haven't dug too much into Moorish masonry, but that is supposedly where the roots of masonry come from. Freemasonry was from the Moors. The Moors
wouldn't that be a Shriner?
Oh,
They
what?
wear fezzes.
Yeah, I think so.
The Shriners are very they creep me out with the whole like the kids and like in Portland we have the Shriner hospital and they're always holding these kids and I'm like I just don't know about that. I don't know if I like that, but
And the little tiny cars, you don't like that? Like that doesn't make you uncomfortable all over when you see the proportion of a regular sized human.
And the clowns, don't get us going on the clowns.
Are there Shriner clowns?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a big old deep rabbit hole for sure.
looks like I got a long night ahead of me then, boys.
So one more point about with the Vulcan and Hawaii, Freud, he wrote that book, Monotheism. Oh, hold on, it's escaping me. Moses and Monotheism is the book that Freud wrote. Freud is a Jewish individual, and in that book, very controversially, he asserted that the old Yahweh was a volcano god, and that Sinai might have been a volcano. And I get a lot of mileage out of that theory, especially considering what I just showed you with the Hawaii card, in the fact that the word Hawaii is the word Yahweh in reverse. That's pretty wild. That's like really gratifying for me to just make all those connections that Yahweh and Hawaii are so tightly related.
It's also the moon card, and the Sinai sign, sin is moon also.
Awesome. High sign, the high moon.
Yeah.
Sine, like sine wave, like fluctuating.
It's like
wave.
Jah is high sun or the midday sun. So Sinai, high moon.
I love these
Night
treasures
moon.
in our language.
Yeah.
They're so
Deep.
delicious.
Yeah. It's the deep cosmic connections. Well,
Can I share the one last weirdness with everybody?
yeah. Is it the Ophiuchus 432?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, please.
This is high grade weirdness, fellas. And if you haven't noticed, I have a very weird perspective on the world. And I'm just stoked to have people who are even remotely as weird as me to share it with. Let me see. And I don't get a lot of practice sharing these things, putting them into words and reflecting them into the world to see how it resonates with others. It's really a blessing. So I just want to say thanks for hanging in there with some of this stuff.
Oh, here we go.
This is my magical decoder ring. This is how we can all get a lifelong supply of Ovaltine right here. So I call this the diction of Aries. And it's got a lot of graphics and it's kind of broken up. But what I've done here is I've taken the 36 minor decans of the zodiac and I've fixed them into this center here, the center wheel. And then I ran the alphabet around the zodiac. And I discovered very gratifyingly that the alphabet fulfills 9 months of the year. If you do 10 degrees for every letter, you get a birth cycle. And that was actually, I thought I was done with this decoder ring. I was actually, I thought that was good enough. And the remaining 3 months are the winter months. And I wasn't lending much value to it. And I showed it to a friend and he suggested that the numbers, the 1 through 9, fit perfectly to bring this 260 degrees into completion, to complete the alphabet into 360 degrees.
Oh, wow. And the 270 is on the 0. The 72 or 27 is right on that 0, which is kind of fascinating as well. Sorry to butt in there.
No, this little graphic has been giving to me and proving itself in the strangest and most remarkable ways.
Can you give an example?
Yes. So one great example is the Yom Kippur ritual, where here we are in Aries, which is the lamb. The lamb stays in the temple. The lamb remains at the origin point. It is the defiled, or you could say the clean goat, the preferred goat, the spotless goat stays in the temple. It is the goat all of the sins are put into, they get sent out of the temple. So the one goat, what's the scapegoat?
Yeah, the precious baby, the traumatic MK child veil.
M-Kid, the M-Kid Ultra. so the defiled goat gets sent out on a 5-day journey, a 5-day pilgrimage with 10 stops along the way, one at the half-day mark and one at night to sleep. And the next day, a halfway mark, there's a rest point, and then they go on until they sleep the next. So it's 10 stations. So we go one.
What are you describing? Like that when you that's the Yom Kippur ritual is what you're describing? Like the okay.
Okay. Right. So Aries stays in the temple, and the defiled goat is sent out on this 10-day journey, 5-day journey with 10 stations. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We land in the defiled goat down at the bottom. And now you can see my mouse. I'm going to cut off this quarter of the pie wedge. The winter seasons, I'm cutting them off, and I'm creating a cliff. This is the cliff that the goat is sent out and dropped down off of the cliff, sacrificed. It falls down to the bottom below. And so the Yom Kippur ritual, and the roots of the word Yom Kippur go back to the Kepri beetle, who leaves tracks as he rolls up the dung in a circle. So the Yom Kippur ritual is very interestingly revealed in this journey, pilgrimage of the Kepri beetle rolling around the circle. And that's one interesting metaphor that is embodied in this cipher. Now I've got it, and that's the most easy to relate. That's probably the most easily relatable. There are many others. The third eye is at the high point at the 90 degrees up high. You will also notice that gematria is revealed through this. A is a 1, lines up with the 10. E is a 5, lines up with the 50. So this also has gematrological harmony. And it works in the numbers as well. Look down here. The 28 reduces to a 1. The 29 becomes 11, reduces to a 2. So all of these numbers and letters are gematrologically correspondent to their positioning on the compass. Are you feeling this?
Yeah.
Okay. Please bring questions if I'm going off into the deep, because this is completely inspired and it's not out of any book.
What are the words that are in the peach and green?
Those are the names of the minor decans.
Oh, those are the name. I didn't know the minor decans had names. Okay.
Yes.
Like the bard is one of their names.
Which one?
The bard.
Let's see. Where is
the
that?
band. The band.
The band.
Oh, I thought it said the bard.
Same thing though, right? Band and bard.
Oh, right.
The band of bards.
So one thing about the minor decans is you can find other people's interpretation of the minor decans, and they'll be slightly adjusted, one to the left, one to the right, but they are generally perceived in this order. So what I want to share, and my graphics here are kind of a little bit difficult to interpret. I guess I should point out that the last 3 elements down here in the winter. So after the birth cycle, when the baby is born, when the kid drops, right? Then the remaining aspects of the zodiac are land, air, and water.
Hmm.
That's the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh. Those are the three gifts of the wise men that were brought to the miraculous birth. And they encode land, air, water is the acronym of law. LAW is the law. And so the gifts of the Magi were the system of law that would be upheld under the newborn king. So LAW is also very beautifully laid out in this aspect, in the three gifts of the three Magi.
And is the body itself the fire aspect, or where does the fire aspect come into play here?
The fire is the soul.
Yeah. Okay.
This is why corporations are dead. They have no soul. They are LAW. They're just land, air, and water. They don't have the fire. They don't have spirit. We bring that to the law.
Mm-hmm.
We are the fire. We bring that last final element to complete the law. So what is really weird is that if Capricorn is the land and the first aspect after the birth, it means that this creates a goat-headed god. If we put Capricorn at the position of L, then this becomes a goat-headed god. And I'm trying to stay linear here, but H and G is a very powerful representation of Mercury on so many levels, so many levels. So that's why you see goat, head, and God over here next to the sign for Mercury. But I don't want to get into that too much. What I want to share really badly, and what I'm really excited to bring on offer for everybody, is a discovery I made a while back when doing some work on this what I call a cipher. I should point out, I call it the diction of ARIZ. And if you can watch my mouse, that's ARIZ, diction of Aries. And that makes the Holy Cross, right? ARIZ is the cross of blessing or protection. And my discovery was really, it's really elaborate, and I'll just kind of give the highlights, but I discovered that the positioning of Ophiuchus, which, by the way, Peter, Ophiuchus on my Tarot Tories map, if I put this on the United States, Ophiuchus lines up with the Bermuda Triangle. It lines up with Florida and the Bermuda Triangle. And that's very interesting, as Ophiuchus is a is a super enigmatic constellation. And that's
a foot on land and a foot in water.
Right. And that's the day JFK died. JFK was assassinated at the initiation point of Ophiuchus here.
Are you bringing that into our Florida 2.0, I'm guessing?
Probably, yeah. That'll probably be in the picture. But so what I want to share is really wild. And it has to do with this T, U, and V right here, the bridge between Libra and Scorpio. The TUV, that's the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Tav. It means foot in Hebrew. And when you say the letters V-U-T, it sounds a lot like the word foot, right? V-U-T and F-O-O-T sound almost identical. And so, you got something to say, Peter? Are you thinking?
No, oh.
Okay. I thought you had a question there. So my discovery was, so a lunar standstill is right between R and S. It's a 18.6 year cycle is when the moon rests. The moon comes to a rest at 18.6 right here. And RST are the letters that frame out. RST frames out the rest point of the lunar standstill. And that is just beautiful, harmonic for me to think about. And so I use that as my starting point, that the lunar standstill rests at the RST. And then I expanded out from there. And I realized that we have a resting and a tav, a resting foot. And it's pointing right here where Ophiuchus's foot is resting. He rests his foot on the tail of the scorpion. But then I build out from there even further, and I get OPQ. Ophiuchus rests his foot right here at this marcation in Scorpio. So the alphabet is confirming this cosmic drama of the dynamics and relationships of the heavens. And just to make things even weirder, TUV is a 432. VUT is a 432.
Septenary.
And ordinal, reduced ordinal. And let me get this right. Yes. So 432 is a VUT, but a 234 is the axial tilt of the Earth. 23.4 degrees is the axial tilt of the Earth. And so all of these things coming together right here at from the V to the W is just so remarkably significant.
So
Revolting.
is Ophiuchus kind of like this determining factor, stepping in and out, maybe helping with this understanding of like the pole shift that we were talking about, or this axial shift? Because Ophiuchus, or this concept of 13 and 12, right, kind of comes in and out of the zodiac understanding on the mainstream, and so does the cycles. And I'm wondering if there's something to this ascension process that is like because we've conceptualized Ophiuchus as being like, okay, you're stepping out of the zodiac and now you're a part of the bigger wheel. Like it's your ascension process. And I'm wondering what your take is on that, and like the purpose of Ophiuchus in this model.
Well, all I can say is that I think of Ophiuchus as the double of you. It's the double of you. It's it's your higher self. It's your ascended genius. It's your daemon. That's all I got on that. But
you got to ask your higher learning. That's how I guess you figure that one out, huh? Oh man, looks like we just had another journeyman just join this venture. We have Mark from the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast.
Oh snap!
Hey, I felt left out. I'm sorry that I'm late, but I couldn't resist this meeting of the minds, and unfortunately, I was dragged to New York City to help Alex Stein film the sideshow carnival act at the Sodom and Gomorrah, and that is in Union Square, New York City. So I had a colorful day, very colorful, and here I am with you wonderful minds.
Wow, good to see you, Mark. Welcome, brother.
Mark, you're coming right when I'm stepping off, so I'm giving you the baton. But I'm disappointed I'm not going to hear about all your stories, but we can catch up tomorrow.
Yeah, that's all right. I wasn't planning on telling stories. I just wanted to come and
I want to hear about what happened in New York. So maybe you and I will talk about that tomorrow.
We're about
Gentlemen, I've got to go.
3.5 hours late.
It's past my bedtime here, East Coast time. This was a lot of fun. It was a pleasure to speak with you all. Pleasure to meet you, Peter. And until the next time.
Much love, brother.
Much love. Anybody that needs to jet set at any time, feel free just to make that move. There's absolutely no worries. We've been going for a while.
I'm gonna bounce out too. So unless we're finishing up, I'm outie.
I got one more punchline to share with you, Dan, before you go.
For me, don't worry.
Ophiuchus is in the middle of the sea. Middle sea. 432, middle sea.
Yeah.
He's stepping over the middle of the sea. I just thought I'd drop that too.
That's kind of like the pillars of Hercules or whatnot. Isn't it like isn't there some type of god that's like standing and he right under his legs out to sea?
Oh yeah, that's
Serpents.
Yeah.
I can't recall what that god is. But
Serpent Sea.
Yes, well, that he could be the M idol C.
might
M
see.
is the 13th letter. He's an
Might-
idol.
Might all.
M idol.
Chad, you said you were about to sign off.
Yeah, I gotta work in the morning, fellas.
Give us your info and where people can find you at before you go, man.
ChadStemke.com, last name spelled STUEMKE. And you can find my articles there, my personal email, and my Telegram is Chad_X. You can find me at any of those places.
All right. Thanks, Chad. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to
Thank
meet you, brother.
guys so much. Hey, pleasure, Gabe, man. Awesome information, man. Thank you for sharing. Peter, absolute pleasure. You've been an inspiration of mine. Romy, Dan, thanks again. Mark, look forward to chatting soon, man. Looks like you had some awesome adventures this last week. All right, guys.
man.
Chat soon. Peace.
Bye.
All right. You're on mute, Peter. You're still on mute, Peter.
Oh,
There you
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I got to tune out myself. And thank you, Mark, for hooking me up with these guys. I had a lot of fun.
Of course. Yeah. Looking forward to our next podcast, Mr. Shampoo.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Peter. Where
it's a
can
pleasure
people
to meet
find you?
you,
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Peter.
Okay.
Wow.
That's all right.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, the strong. Hey, Mark, check it out, you crazy son of a bitch.
Late.
You got your
Oh,
shirt on.
shit. I love it. Yeah, that was a cool design. I hope you guys had a fun night. I'm sorry I'm so late, but Dan, nice to see your face again, brother. Gabe, nice to talk to you again, brother. We got to have you on our new show that Roman and I have been working on. It's going to be top secret. I don't know if Roman's even told Dan about it. Dan, do you know anything about this yet?
I don't know anything about anything.
Oh,
Roman
yeah.
doesn't tell me
Revelation.
nothing.
Shut the fuck up.
I'll
I
tell you.
have told you about it.
Roman's taking over the show and he just does everything, and I just show up to meetings now when he tells me to.
That's right. That's right.
It's
That's
pretty
right.
much how it works now.
No, but we're taking off where this month left off because it's so fascinating. And yeah, I mean, it's gonna. I don't know if we're. I think I'm pretty much sure I did tell you about that, Dan.
Well, the idea is that each episode is going to be titled the name of a small town or a
Mhm.
region, and we're going to find somebody in our listening audience, and they're going to tell us the weird mystical stuff about their own hometown. So you're both welcome to participate. The only requirement is that you live somewhere, which you both do. So
That's cool. That sounds awesome. I've been conspiring with TR on some of his work.
Oh, nice.
that was
I
our
know
first,
he's on the list, right?
he was our
Yep.
first guest. So yeah, for sure. We probably got some of that on record. I think he did mention you helping him with that when we recorded that first episode, but fun night. I mean, we both all had different nights. Sorry to come in so late, but I can imagine you guys got down to some the finer points of synchronicity and syncretism with everyone present, right? Like, geez, I can only imagine.
That was amazing.
Very
That was
fun.
really wonderful.
Yeah. Good time.
Yeah, it was great. There's a lot. I mean, it's gonna be a whirlwind for the Fire Tribe to dissect that one because a lot of stuff that none of the other guests have talked about and that I think or know of. Like, you know, we tried to bring up like some other shit. Well, one of the great things that was a takeaway for me was like the Merkabah, the Earthkabah. Like pyramid shooting through the earth to connect at some other point, like that blew my mind. Like, geez, sweet Lord.
I'm still tripping. Yeah, I got notes. I got tons of notes. I got a whole page of notes here. But the pyramid corresponding with water, like the shape of it, harmonizing with all the water of the earth. That's really remarkable.
Yeah, that's a trip. Because I have I always kind of go into the fact that, or not the fact, but the idea that the pyramid was some type of atmospheric generator, and that the fire in the middle, it wasn't necessarily the earth itself, but I talk about this experiment that I did as a kid where you put a match into a bottle and you put a boiled egg on top, and it burns out all the oxygen and sucks the egg through. And if you have a pyramid and you have a fire in the middle, you burn up the oxygen inside. And what's it going to do? It's going to suck the water that's down below up through it and put it out those spouts, those entry holes that are there that people think are celestial. Maybe they are. Maybe there's a celestial reason for the water to be pouring out of those. But if it pours over the hot pyramid, it's going to create a mist or what is it, humidity, which is going to create rain,
evaporation,
going to bring more water and everything to the crops, and they'll have a bigger output of agriculture. And then when you look at the Sahara and how it's dried up now, and it used to be a very watery area, I wonder if maybe the pyramid malfunctioning or not working in the same way that it used to work had anything.
Well, you mean the thing that Peter brought up with the earthquake?
Yeah, that's interesting too. But that's way later. I'm talking way earlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah, dude. I mean, it's crazy because, like, okay, so some people say, you know, they're emulating mountains, right, or emulating volcanoes, which shoot out fire.
Yeah.
But if these shoot out water, right, it's like it's the yin of the yang, too. And that's kind of what humans' jobs are, like, essentially on Earth, is like the yin to the fire of the yang of the earth to create that hermetic balance, which is that's fascinating.
Well, it's hot water.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's you know, it's still the water element as opposed to the fire element.
Yeah.
But the materials.
Well, they're all there. The earth, wind, water, and fire. Because you have the earth, that's the pyramid, you have the water, and you have the fire, the sun that's hitting the outside of it, and then you have the water again, which is the mist, another phase, and then the air spreading it out to wherever it needs to go.
Yeah, it's super fucking cool. It's like it's perfect
we need to look more into feng shui too, because I think maybe there's like some type of feng shui connection in these different cities, and they have all these different feng shui ideas in them. And I think we should, Gabe, maybe you should lay some feng shui over it, because you like to lay stuff over everything.
Some feng shui.
Maybe there's some type of feng shui to it, you know, because there's always fountains, there's always fire, there's always, you know, the Leo is actually associated with water and fountains, and so the Sphinx having water around it. I think they talk about, you know, Robert Shaw talks about that, but I think also that maybe there's the enclosure around the Sphinx because it was actually a fountain, and it wasn't didn't have anything to do with flooding or anything like that, a lot of rain.
That'd be tight.
I dig it. A Sphinx walking on water is a beautiful thing to imagine.
Yeah, well, if you look at all the fountains, right, it's always like a lion in a fountain.
Oh, wow. And there's the myth that there were once two Sphinxes.
Yeah.
Which led a lot of people to think that the one on the left is missing. But what if it was in the water being reflected? That would make for two Sphinxes.
Dude, that's fucking nuts, bro.
Just like, Washington, D.C., Taj Mahal, the reflection pool.
Yeah, man, that is super
There
nuts.
You go.
Brillante. I
the
love
mirror
it.
world.
What's that, bud?
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah.
Dolmens.
In the largest bookstore in the world in New York City. I stopped in there today on my gay trip, and I found this really cool book, North Caucasus Dolmens, and it's all about these ancient structures in Russia, which like who's ever even heard of some of these places? Like
we actually gave a report on that in one of the earlier shows. I talked about like there's thousands of them all lined up around the Black Sea.
Yeah, I remember that was a minute ago, dude. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Shit, you guys are already on it then, but there's this place called the Koyuga Triangle, and it's basically like the Bermuda Triangle of Russia. And
Nuts.
These like dolmens, they look like doorways. Like
Yeah, dude.
They,
crazy
they're
looking.
usually
Keyholes.
associated with little people.
Ah,
I think they were docks, and they would dock their boat there, and they could also store whatever that they had in there
Like,
before going back out.
Oh, like a trading port, maybe too.
Yeah,
Is that the
yeah.
Magi?
it says dolmens in the tarot. Connection with ancient megalithic sites can be seen in modern tarot cards. In ancient times, the training of priests consisted of the philosophical paintings and explanatory diagrams that reflected the unity of the laws of the universe.
Yeah, sick. That's crazy. The fucking cover of that book looks like a backpacker's travel guide because there's like a backpack on it. I was like, did he picked up a?
He backpacked across Russia. What are you setting yourself up for? Hit me with the punchline.
No, it was just like, what kind of like backpacking book is that, bro? I thought you were trying to get some alchemical occult. What
What kind of backpacking is that? I thought you were on a fudge packing trip.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what was filled with, that's for sure. But no, I thought the biggest Barnes and Noble in the world would have like the biggest occult book section, but it was pretty disappointing, the same size as any other Barnes and Noble. I did find this weird book that, Adventure Press published it, and I don't know what their deal with Barnes and Noble is like, but I don't see a lot of Adventures Unlimited press books in Barnes and Noble typically. So I was like, you know what? I might never see this book again. I'm gonna pick it up.
Nice.
Well, I do got to bounce because it's like fucking late. I thought we were gonna be done at 6. So peace out, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. for
Much
showing
love,
up.
Dan.
Thanks, Mark. Fire Tribe, wake up. You guys can keep talking, do what you want to do, but I'm out. Later.
All right, brother.
Peace, man.
Peace and love.
Yeah, I should probably go too. I just wanted to say hi real quick, but
He just like got home. He was texting me on his drive home. He's like, I'll be home in 5 minutes. Just so he just got home and went right on the computer. So, and you were driving from New York. So I got, dude, much appreciato, bro, for popping in, bro.
So I got one more thing to leave everybody with here real quick.
Yeah, bro.
And I think, Mark, I think you'll dig this one. I made this meme a long time ago. This is an image of the Twin Towers with the sun shining through them as though they were made of paper mache. There was a time when you could see the core structure of the Twin Towers. Both of them appeared shallow inside. What were these structures? Did they plan to knock them down since the day they were built? But then I put these words here. This is something to really consider. Here we go. What Pavlovian sound did your school use to program you to stop thinking, change the subject, and move on? Was it a bell ding, or was it the word building?
yeah. And what were they building?
They were building a Pavlovian response in the entire community of the English-speaking race.
Like the entire modern English language. The Pavlonians ding dong.
I think that's a good one to end on, right?
Yeah, man. That was I love that picture, dude. They totally looked hollow. Super strange.
Yeah, that hit me pretty hard when I saw it. I had to up the ante and put my own 2 cents on there.
Well, you know what else is interesting about that too? Speaking of like, that's not like your traditional resonance architecture, but they have the pillar aspect, the Masonic pillar aspect. True. But also they like could be a tuning fork of like, keeping that tune up because you have those, so that's super interesting, super fascinating.
And here's this is definitely the punctuation. Have you ever heard that 19 hertz is the frequency of fear?
No, but
Yeah.
there's something weird with that. Like right when you said that, the word 19, I was just like, I kind of shook my boots a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, 19 hertz is the signature frequency of fear, And the 19th tarot card is where Medusa lives. And the 19th Amendment is where they gave women the right to vote, striking fear in the hearts of every man who was like, what, my wife gets to vote too? What's this? Back in the day.
Well,
All right.
today too, with what the fuck's happening, right? Like that's
man.
some role reversal shit. It's nuts. Learn from history or be doomed to repeat it.
That's
With
what's
the 2 pillars too, man. There you go. The media is the virus. Flax seeds.
You got to hit up the Order of the White Rose. They'll send you a box of all these stickers.
I've heard of that. I've
Yeah.
heard of Order of the White Rose.
They were like, "Oh, we want to send you a box of stickers." So I'm like, "All right, I'll send them to my fans, to my podcast homies, all the folks listening and tuning in." Yeah, I'm tired as hell.
Yeah, man.
Alex Stein is crazy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to bring it back to what I did today, because you guys are talking about some crazy, interesting stuff, and I'm just so disoriented from New York City that I probably couldn't even comment. But Alex Stein is wild. He has some real interesting ideas for how to make crazy content, and today was bear witness to that. So stay tuned. Watch that on his YouTube channel or his Twitter, probably his Twitter, because there was a lot of nudity in those videos I filmed.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. Fountains with women dancing in the fountains, and streets were full. It was wild.
So what was it? Wait, holy shit, that's next level. Wading in the fountain water? Wading.
7 chakra pattern on them. Like, it's just, to me, it was like some kind of rituals being done. And Friday was St. John the Baptist Day, so I kind of kicked everything off. So this hyper color palette of interesting people were dancing around New York City, raising the energy. It's definitely a spell. And it was in Union Square too, which is has that big magnetic looking arch, that like magnet shaped arch. That's where the center was focused on. So I'm sure what I just said, for everyone listening, they'll be like piecing it together. Well, you guys probably are right now, because you just had that conversation. But yeah, I definitely think that, like, it's weird. It's like you get into this stuff and you're like, whoa, the patterns are everywhere. And then it gets to a point where you're like, am I even like experiencing an organic reality, or did this all get sparked because I started recognizing the pattern?
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and even what is organic too, because everything within atmosphere, I guess, could be organic, but then again, it's also not. It's some sort of form of manifestation, but whose manifestation is it?
Well, with that, Gabe, Roman, thank you both.
Much love, brothers.
And creating this awesome podcast and creating all the amazing info and YouTube videos that you do. I feel like I'm wrapping it up like it's my podcast. Roman, cut me off.
Get the fuck out of here, Mark. You're done, son. Hey, let the people know where they can find you. Plug your stuff, man.
Gabe?
Oh, I'm Slick Dissident on YouTube. I also run with the Weaving Spiders Webs. We had a recent adjustment in our channel name, Weaving Spiders Webs. And I'm also with Chance Garton on the Interverse podcast, primarily on Rockfin. Is a good place to find all the goods on that one. So that's me.
I thought we were hanging out, Gabe.
Oh, well, I should get going.
Oh, fine. I'm just kidding.
I got this burger. I got to go reheat.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I haven't eaten yet either. Sick. Okay, and then sorry, Mark. Didn't plug your...
No, I don't want to plug anything. I didn't even participate. If anyone you go watch the Alex Stein videos that I helped film today, I wasn't in them, but I was on the other side of the camera. So
the two-way or the one-way mirror, two-way mirror. What are those things?
It was a trip. enjoy those videos, but you know where to find me.
Fruit, everybody. All right, you beautiful existers. Take away from this almost 4-hour episode. Let us know what you think on the Telegram. It's gonna be nuts, you guys. So remember, when you are about to go to sleep, do some breathing, do some aligning to have some real cosmic dreams, because we are the answer to the questions. We are the future. We are the happening. We are the now. And within the celestial understanding of all the goodness, we can break the cosmic code, or just understand the cosmic code. All right, if you can't get down with that, wake up.